Oi! Yes. What's happening, everybody? It's the first Oi of 2024, the first UFC card of 2024. Magomed Ankalaev versus, who is he fighting? Johnny Walker. Again? Yes. Why? We don't know, but it is the main event of this card, and it is an interesting stylistic matchup once again. I'm looking forward to seeing that fight again, and I'm looking forward to seeing pretty much all the fights on this card. I'm fired up for it. I'm fired up for 2024. I'm fired up for what's new and the new possibilities in this new year. My 50th year on this planet. Just had a birthday on New Year's Day, my 50th birthday, 50th anniversary of walking this earth, you guys. So it is good to be back with you here on YouTube for another year of MMA betting and statistical content right here on your Uncle Weezy's YouTube channel. And there's going to be a lot more new stuff coming up on the Patreon that I'm going to maybe do a little bit of a sneak peek of today later on in the show after we're done breaking down these fights. And speaking of breaking down fights, we got a little bit of work to do tonight, you guys. 12 fights on this card to break down. I'm a little bit sick again for some reason. Got a little bit of a sore throat, a little bit of a cold. I don't know why. I've had 2 in 2 months. Very disturbing, but as you get older, I guess maybe a little more sickly. I don't know. So my voice is going to try to hold up the best it can to deliver all the information that I got ready at my fingertips for you guys about all 12 fights on the UFC Vegas 84 card. We're going to comb through all the details, all the stats, all the tape study notes so that we can stack cash tickets like flapjacks and do what we love, which is watching these fights and making money betting on these fights while we're watching them. So let's do it. Come along with me, you guys. Another journey, another year on this channel, and I'm fired up to have you guys join me and come along with me on this journey of making money betting on fights. Who's with us here live in the chat here? We got Desi Jaron in the room saying, my boy Weezy back at it like a crack addict. Let's go. I'm addicted to giving you guys good content on MMA, and we're going to do it again this year, and I'm looking forward to doing it with you guys here. We got Expressed in the room way earlier saying 4 hours left until showtime. We got Tia Paku saying, can't wait for this. Can't wait to break down these fights with you guys. We got my guy Gerald Gardner in the room with the ass shaving. My guy Gerald, appreciate the kind generosity that you showed me yesterday, brother. Let's make some money together, shaving some bookie ass in 2024. We got my guy DFS by the numbers in the room saying, welcome back, Weezy. It's good to be back, Brady. We did Stat Diggers on Sunday night. The link to that is in the description of this video. Broke down all 12 of these fights. It's a very interesting card, man. And we got some very interesting lines that dropped on Bet Online, and I'm looking forward to talking a little bit more about that later on this week as well. It plays a little bit into these new products that I'm going to be offering on the Patreon, but it's also a little bit disturbing when you see fight doesn't go to decision lines opening up for 3-round fights at minus 1,400. We'll talk more about that later on in the week because we got a lot of work to do tonight, but yeah, it's a little bit disturbing where some of these lines open this week. And it seems like Bet Online's 2024 New Year's resolution was to provide no value at all to the people that bet MMA on their website. We got Bob Spikerman's in the room saying, Weezy, our main man with the master plan. What's happening, Bob? It is good to see you hanging out in here all the way from the Netherlands and then all the way from Grand Rapids, Michigan, the other side of the lake. My buddy Victor De Jesus saying, oi, yes, what's up, Weezy and chat? Good to see you in here, Victor. Always appreciate you hanging out with us here, brother. JP Taylor saying, I smell flapjacks. Can't wait. What's up, Unc? What's up, JP? I'm ready to break down some fights with you guys today. Gerald Gardner saying, oi, yes, it's time. 2024 is all about the ass shaving of the week. Let's go, man. We got JP Taylor in the room saying we're getting a decent snowstorm here in Chicagoland today. Might have Weezy running late. Yeah, I did actually just run out to grab myself a little bit of dinner. It is nasty out there, man. It is snowing. It is, and it's a nice thick snow too, one that's going to definitely accumulate here in Chicago, something we're used to here in the city, but still, I'd rather it be sunny and 75 degrees, but we're going to have to wait for that for a little bit here. We got Teratea saying, Uncle Weezy, sure, what is happening, my man? We got Kiwi Brew in the room saying, sure, all good to see you hanging out in here, Eli. We got sure Kiwi Brew saying, sure, brother. We got Prince of Mischief in the room saying, can't wait to see who's the first ass shaving of the 2024 is. You will find out, my friend, as always, at the end of the show. We got Sneerius in the room saying, excited for the weekend. Feel better, Unc? Yeah, it's coming along. I felt actually worse a couple of days ago. So yeah, we're gonna 10-8 this cold and get into 2024 going hard. And we got Ryan Suck in the room saying, beast, love Weezy. What's happening, Ryan? Good to see you hanging out in here, man. We got Prince of Mischief saying Johnny Walker by flying knee in round 2, 3 minutes and 16 seconds, says Prince of Mischief. A very precise prediction there for an outcome of the main event. We got Jeff K in the room. What is happening, man? Good to see you in here, Jeff. We got Garrett Gatlin in the room saying Walker is shaving ass. Well, if he does, you got a great betting opportunity this week because he is about a plus 400 underdog on the money line right now. We got Prince of Mischief saying the UFC canvas by KO and Walker does the worm. Yeah, man, Walker hurt himself doing that worm, something that I used to do when I was a kid, back when I would break dance, man. That is a fun move to do, but if you get hurt doing it, God, that could be a little bit embarrassing, kind of like Terrence McKinney when he got hurt jumping on the fence. When you hurt yourself celebrating, I remember one of the Grammatica brothers, one of the kickers in the NFL, wound up blowing out his knee after celebrating after making a field goal. Some great stuff, man. We got Garrett saying Walker already 1-0 versus him because that first knee was so illegal. Yeah, that could have easily been called not a no contest, but a deliberate foul, a disqualification potentially. Absolutely. Real Deal Prime in the room. What is happening? Saying wrestling rules, and it does. We got Teratea saying, I started properly tracking bets last January. Watching you last year taught me bankroll management. I ended up plus 58 units last year, $100 units. Thanks for the knowledge. Keen for this year. Teratea, that is a phenomenal year, first of all. And second of all, if we're going to hold on to those units that you made last year, the best recipe always for doing that is good bankroll management. We don't have to get too far over our skis. We don't have to bet fights where they don't give us bettable lines. We only need to pick our spots, and what they give us is what we take, and we're going to take what they give us again in 2024, my man. The Cuban Assassin in the room saying, happy birthday, Weezy. Happy New Year. Thank you, Cuban Assassin. I'm looking forward to doing content in 2024 for all you guys again, and it'll be another happy New Year. Ryan saying, love Weezy. What's up, Ryan? We got Easy Bets in the room saying, Weezy, feels so good to be back. It does, man. I wish my voice was ready for you guys today, but I got my water here. You know, I'm ready to give you guys a good show today. And we got Garrett saying, need to see you at Rivers in 2024. I'm going to have to get there more in 2024, Garrett. Let's do it. We got Ruthless Soda Pop saying, oi, Weezy, how excited are you for the great Westin Wilson to make his return this week? It's Westin Wilson Fight Week. The same Westin Wilson that beat Suksan Simpleman. The same Westin Wilson that got caught in an armbar by Charles Cheeks III. But hey, it's Westin Wilson. And it is going to be a fun fight when he graces the octagon on Saturday. And what's going to be really fun is breaking down these fights with you guys again in 2024 so that we can all find ways to stack cash to tickets like flapjack. So let's get into it. Let me share my screen with you guys. I have got my stats up here. Oh, wait. All I got to do is just click right there, and we are all set to go. We got 27 of you guys live watching. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe if you haven't already. And please consider leaving me a comment down below. Let me know who your lock of the week is this week, what your favorite bet is. If you got a parlay that you're planning on putting in, I love interacting with you guys in the comment section here on YouTube. So hit me up down there as well. And please consider joining the Patreon where you get access to these stats, the prop template, all the analytics that comes along with the prop template, 5-round fights and finish rates, 3-round fights and finish rates there, all these finish rates embedded into the sheet. And then next year's product, this is next year, it's 2024 now, is going to have this in even a sleeker way. Let me see if I can bring up for you guys real quick here. Where is that sheet? There it is. Kape Nicolau. Significant strike template. Takedown template. Fantasy score template. All the analytics that you could possibly want. The prop template looking like this year. A little bit sleeker, in my opinion. Same great analytics that you're used to, and we're even putting the divisional totals in here. So not only do you know that 44.29% of 125-pound fights finish inside the distance, but it's also, you know, that it's 124 out of 280 is the exact numbers that make up that 44.29. Nicolau, 4 of 9 fights finished inside the distance in the UFC. Manel Kape, 2 of 6, 40% combined fight doesn't go to decision rate here. And then we also add up all 3 metric comparisons. We see that we're overpaying a little bit on the violence line here at plus 145, and we're underpaying a little bit here on the over 2.5, if you can see by these numbers down here. But either way, I'm really looking forward to you guys joining up on the Patreon this year as I give you an even deeper look into all the statistics and analytics that I've been curating and accumulating over the last couple of years. But let's get into these fights. And we're going to start with, it is going to be Joshua Van versus Felipe Bunes. And let me get the banner up here for you guys. We got Joshua Van, a minus 250 favorite here. Felipe Bunes, plus 210 on the underdog line here. And we've got fight doesn't go to decision right now on BetOnline Sportsbook at minus 170. So let's first start talking about the advantages that Joshua Van's going to have here. First of all, this dude is 12 years younger than Felipe Bunes, as Bunes is 34 years old and Joshua Van's still only 22. And Josh is going to have the UFC experience advantage here, as he's got 2 more fights and 30 more minutes of octagon time, as Bunes will be making his UFC debut on Saturday. And Josh is going to be the better striker here. He's a phenomenal boxer. At distance, Josh pressures forward more and more as the fight goes on. He's got an excellent chin that allows him to pressure without worrying about getting clipped. And Josh is always putting together combinations. He flashes power, and this kid goes to the body at an alarming rate. Hit the pressure, the volume, the chin, the way he mixes up his targets, and his 63.3% distance striking defense are all reasons why Josh is landing a whopping 9.45 distance strikes per minute spent at distance with over 50% accuracy. He's attempting almost 19 distance strikes per minute, which is 7.86 more than the divisional average. Throw in the fact that over 91% of Josh's 30 minutes of octagon time have been spent at distance striking range, and you have a very dangerous prospect who is still only 22 years old in Josh Van. And then on the other side, we got Felipe Bunes, who's making his debut. He's going to be the bigger flyweight with a 2-inch reach advantage, a 2-inch height advantage and a 6-inch reach advantage in this spot. Josh is an undersized flyweight, so he's often going to find himself being the smaller guy at this level. Let's see if Felipe can take advantage of that. Felipe Bunes also has the overall experience advantage with 9 more professional fights, about an hour more of professional cage time, and 10 more years as a pro mixed martial artist. So Bunes has got a big experience advantage over Josh. You know, you talk about Josh just made his professional MMA debut just 2 years and 2 months ago, while for Felipe Bunes, his career has already spanned over 12 years. And Felipe is, without a doubt, you guys, going to be the better grappler in this matchup. Josh is still only 22 years old, and he just started wrestling for the first time in his life 6 months before the Zhalgas Zhumagulov fight. Felipe is 8 wins and 2 losses to the submission in his pro career, and it's clear when you watch his tape that he does his best work in the grappling exchanges. Felipe can get a little sloppy and be a submission over position grappler, but he's very good there and usually has little problem recovering when he does lose position or get reversed. Bunes grappling has been tested at a high level in his pro career, having 5 fights in the Russian promotion ACA and having a fight against Jussier Formiga in LFA. And I rank the strength of schedule for Felipe Bunes higher than I do for Van. Bunes does have a mediocre 13-6 pro record, but it's clear that his regional scene strength of schedule is about as tough as it comes. So in summary, I think this is what is going to be a striker versus grappler matchup here. I really think Van's pressure, volume, and distance striking skills make him more likely to win minutes and moments on the feet, while Bunes should thrive and be the more dangerous moment winner in the grappling exchanges for sure, and potentially even the better minute winner, even though we haven't seen a ton of Felipe Bunes being a proactive chain wrestler that is very active with it. But he is able to get fights to the ground. He is able to win minutes there, and he's very dangerous once it gets down there. Very aggressive with his offensive submission attack. And Bunes also does a good job of catching kicks to set up his takedown, so I can see him having success getting this fight to the ground and potentially winning minutes and moments against Van, who has only been wrestling for about a year now. Felipe has been away from the cage for 1 year, and the reason that we haven't seen Felipe yet was he was supposed to make his UFC debut against Zhalgas Zhumagulov, and he wound up testing positive for something called GW 1516, whatever the hell that is. I mean, evidently it's a prohibited metabolic modulator, but he tested positive for that, and as a result of that, Joshua Van was able to step in against Zhalgas Zhumagulov on short notice, and now it's Bunes is going to be making his debut after serving the 6-month suspension against the guy who took his place in the Zhumagulov fight. So it's a little bit of interesting narrative thing going on there. But Van has been the much more active fighter recently, obviously, because he wasn't suspended for a year. I mean, we've seen Felipe away from the cage for over a year now. So that being said, Bunes is 2 inches taller. He's got a 6-inch reach advantage, and he's the more experienced fighter. He's the better wrestler. He's the better grappler, and he's the better minute and moment winner in the grappling exchanges, and he's fought the better brand of competition. But I still rate Van's wins over Borjas and Zhalgas as better than any of Felipe's wins. So I think Bunes by sub or decision could be worth a shot here, as long as Van remains around a -200 favorite, which is still where he is right now. But it's very difficult to ignore all the on-paper advantages Bunes has in this matchup. But all fights start on the feet, and all rounds start on the feet. So it's going to be up to Felipe to proactively wrestle and grapple here, to try to catch some kicks, to deal with Van's pressure, which is difficult. It's always harder to wrestle off of your back foot than it is off of your front foot. But we really don't know what Josh Van is going to look like if Bunes gets him down to the ground. Josh Van's only loss came against a grappler, a wrestler grappler, not really like a Brazilian jiu-jitsu type grappler, in this kid named Jackson, who wound up getting his back and choking him out in the second round of that fight. So the only loss on Joshua Van's career pro record comes against the grappler, and Felipe Bunes is exactly that. So even though I'm picking Josh Van to win this fight by decision, I think Felipe Bunes by submission, or even just Felipe Bunes's money line, is something that I might get to this week, because I think there's a lot of value here, and I think people will be surprised how much better on the ground Felipe is than Josh, just due to the experience gap that these two have at grappling range. So while I will be picking, and I've got the O'Malley versus Vera card up here, but we're going to be picking fights right here. And the first one, I'm going to kind of take the coward's way out here and pick the favorite, Joshua Van, by decision. But I want to be very clear that I am not parlaying Joshua Van this week. I am not laying that juice on Joshua Van this week. I do believe that the money line value is on Felipe Bunes. And I think Felipe Bunes by sub at plus 400, plus 450, or even better than that is something that will tickle my fancy and will probably be a small bet for me this week as well. But the pick is going to be Joshua Van by decision. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Yeah, Usman asking, am I still sick? Yeah, dude, you can probably hear it in my voice, unfortunately, and I apologize for that, you guys. But yeah, I am still sick. It's unbelievable. I got better, and then just like 3 days ago, I woke up again with a sore throat. It's unbelievable. Ring a ding ding, you guys. The first donation of 2024 to Uncle Weezy's YouTube channel. My guy Teratea Paku, all the way down from down under. Or is it New Zealand, Teratea, or is it Australia? I forget. But either way, man, thank you so much for the donation to the show. We got Burner in the room saying, any word on Phil Hawes' game plan? I need this guy to wrestle. Yeah, I hope he does wrestle. He's got to protect that chin of his. We'll see what he comes out doing, though. I think Phil Hawes has got a lot of ways to win this fight and one way to lose it. So it's kind of a terrifying fight to bet on. Ryan saying Hawes is so talented, just always finds a way to lose. It's true. SD saying Hawes is planning to go out on his shield, zero wrestling, then go out on his shield. He probably will. We got my guy Pickle Kush in the room saying, oi, it's good to have fights back. I've been giving money back like it's my job lately. Yeah, that's why I just stick to my fantasy football teams, which, by the way, in my big money league, won the Super Bowl this year. So won some money on fantasy football, which is always nice. And then also, staying away from betting on the NFL, from baseball, football, hockey, none of that shit. I just stick with MMA. We got TNT saying fight FDGTG. Does that mean fight does or doesn't go to decision? So FDGTD means doesn't. FGTD means fight goes to decision. So the 4-letter acronym means fight goes. The 5-letter acronym means it finishes inside the distance or it doesn't go. And we got JP saying, that's the good stuff. We got Teratea saying, the odds are a little wide for me. Van does have very clean boxing, and that he does. Dude, Van's boxing is fun to watch. He's fast. He, like I say, he loves the pressure, and that's great. Josh Van should pressure. He's an undersized flyweight. The undersized fighter should be the one pressuring. That's how they get into range. That's how they close the distance. That's how they nullify their opponent's height and reach advantage. So Josh fights the perfect style for his body type and for his great conditioning and youth that he has. You know, he can obviously move forward throwing a ton of volume. TNT saying it'll be fun fight to kick things off. Yeah, it really will, for sure. We got Flo in the room saying, oi, what's up, Flo? We got King Bicky in here saying, happy to catch a show. It's been a while. Thank you for hanging out, King Bicky. Good to see you hanging out in here. And he said he's New Zealand Italian living in Australia. So checking in from down under, but from New Zealand and part Italian as well. So very cool there, man. And ring a ding ding, you guys. We got Kevin Nicholson, PT, with the $5 donation saying, not a gambler, but the breakdowns help my MMA injury analysis. Thank you. And and I appreciate you, Kevin. Thank you so much for the donation. And thank you for checking in live with the show with us, man. Much appreciated. And we got Sneeria saying, I may get to a Van inside the distance bet, but I do know he hasn't got one at this level yet. But I do think he's very capable of ending this fight. Yeah, the finishes are going to come for Josh. Boras is an extremely durable dude. And if you go watch that Jalgas fight, the referee was this close to stopping it in the second. He was so close to the two of them, but he let it go, and I think he should have. I had the under 2.5 in that fight at big plus money. I was hoping it would have gotten stopped, and I would have had a nice cash had it did. But yeah, the finishes are going to come for Josh Van, especially the way that he works the body. We got Silky B saying, Weezy, we killing it in 2024. Let's get it, my man. Gerald Gardner saying Bunes layoff not a factor. No, it is a factor. And Josh has definitely been the much more active fighter. So, yeah, that Bunes layoff is a factor in my opinion, Gerald. Over a year, and it's a USADA layoff as well. So there could be, he could have a tougher weight cut this time because according to my notes, it was a 6-month USADA suspension for a positive test of GW 1516, which is a prohibited metabolic modulator. So it sounds like working with your metabolism, it probably helps you burn off a little bit of calories, a little bit of fat, a little bit of weight near the weight cut time. I don't know, but could potentially cause him to have a tougher weight cut. So yeah, it's definitely a factor. But he is plus 215 on the money line, or plus 210 on the money line. So it's still a pretty fat number. And Van's hands drop when he goes backwards. That's a big hole. Well, somebody's going to have to do that because he's usually the one pressuring. So, you know, if people can put the pressure back on Van, maybe they can open and find a way to take advantage of that hole in his game. And let's see here. We got TNT saying, yeah, Bunes fought a few Russians and went the distance. Yes, he did. And if you look at, here, let me save this pick. And if we just go to the Fight Center, UFC. Oh, yeah, here we go. Oh, wait, damn it. No, damn it. Fight Center, UFC, Ankalaev versus Walker 2. The combined record of the guys that beat him: Mansur Katiev 7-0, Murad Magomedov 8-0, Imran Bukuev 10-1. You know, these guys were 25-1. The 3 records of the guys that beat him, and even one of these was a majority decision. He came back and had great third rounds against a couple of those guys. And for Miga, this is an interesting fight because that fight was scheduled for 125 pounds. He took it on short notice, did Bunes, and then Formiga showed up and told the people at LFA, nah, I'm not fighting at 125. I'm going to fight at 135. They're like, you contracted to fight at 125. He goes, I can't make 125. Take it or leave it. And it was Jussier Formiga, one of the biggest names that LFA has had. So they're like, well, I guess we'll take it. So they contracted the weight at 135, and Formiga fucking shows up at 139. So Bunes was already cutting weight to make 125, and then he gets told, oh, now it's at 135. So it was a bit of a mess for Bunes. He kind of walked into a buzzsaw on that one. But all right, you guys, we actually got to my guy Propaholic in the room. I'm actually awake right now recording for my channel, says Propaholic. Hope you've been having a great start to your 2024, Weezy. Appreciate you, my man. I know you're usually in bed at this time of night, so thanks for popping in, brother. And yeah, good luck to you this year. I know you had a great 2023. Let's have a great 2024, my man. And Kiwi saying what's up to Propaholic. But we got to get on to the next fight here. And we got 12 fights to break down. And this next one is going to be Nik Motta against Tom Big Train Nolan. And we've got Motta's a big underdog here at plus 270. Big Train making his debut at minus 330 favorite. Fight doesn't go to decision. Thanks, Bet Online. Completely unbettable. Staying out of the way. Providing you with no value whatsoever. Minus 1,400. What a kick in the pants is. What that is when like the book that's charged with opening openers in our space decides that they don't want to take any risk. Really great stuff. So yeah, minus 1,400 for fight doesn't go to decision here. Let's first start talking about Nik Iron Motta in this fight. Nik has the overall and UFC experience advantages in this spot. Nik has 13 more professional fights, 90 more minutes of pro cage time, and 8.5 more years as a professional fighter. Nik also has 4 more fights at the UFC level and 25 more minutes of octagon time. A Dana White Contender Series fight, and he was in tough Latin America house back in 2015 was Motta when he was 22 years old. Tom is making his UFC debut with a 6-0 record over 3 years. So Nik Motta is definitely the way more experienced fighter here. And Nik has serious power in both hands. His UFC striking metrics are pitiful if you look at them on the screen here, but he's got a negative 2.32 distance striking differential, 30% accuracy at distance, 44% defense. You see it, just a bunch of red. It's all red here on the striking metrics for Motta. Look at all that. It's just that his opponents are low volume and he spends a lot of time at distance, which is where he wants to be because he doesn't attempt takedowns. So that's good that he gets to spend time at distance, which is where he really tries to win moments and not minutes. So he's a big time moment winner at distance. So he's always live to land a big shot, especially against someone who pressures forward relentlessly like Tom Nolan does. And Nik has fought the better brand of competition over his pro career, and it really isn't even close. Nolan only has 6 professional fights, so even though he's a dangerous finisher with serious power, we have no idea how his skills are going to translate at this level against a big step up in level of competition here. Now, Tom Big Train Nolan is going to be 7 years younger than Nik Motta. He's going to be 6 inches taller, and he's got a 3-inch reach advantage. This young man is a gigantic lightweight. Gigantic, you guys. He's absolutely massive for the weight class, so I'm interested to see how he utilizes that size at the UFC level. Excuse me. Nolan is the southpaw in this southpaw versus orthodox matchup, which is also an advantage on paper. And Tom's size, pressure, and power makes him a difficult opponent to deal with. He's aggressive almost to a fault. He shows no respect for his opponent's offense and frankly doesn't do a good job of using that length due to his propensity to pressure forward and dive into the pocket throwing combinations. Tom has 4 wins and 0 losses to the knockout in his career, and Motta has been finished in 100% of his pro losses. So there will definitely be opportunities for Nolan to land big shots and find an early finish here. This fight's going to be a car crash. Nolan is so fun to watch. He could care less about the height and reach gifts that he has, and instead of using those gifts to maintain distance and point fight, he instead walks forward like Jason Voorhees with a machete, blasting combos, knees, elbows, kicks. He fights like his hair is on fire, and I have no doubt that this kid's style is going to be so fun to watch at this level. Nolan's massive measurables advantages, the fact that he's almost 8 years younger and is also the southpaw with excellent power against a guy who is known for being chinny, make him the rightful favorite in this spot. But ignore Motta's experience, his power, and strength of schedule advantages at your own peril because Nolan's reckless style opens him up for Motta to land those hands. And he has crazy power. Violence is the play here. Nolan's last 4 wins were all finishes. Motta has 9 career wins by knockout, and Motta's been finished in 100% of his losses. So I do see someone getting served early here. I like the under 1.5 rounds at minus 185 as a parlay piece, especially with Nolan's aggressive style and due to how chinny Motta is. I'll pick Nolan to win by first round knockout here, but laying minus 307 on Nolan, who only has 6 pro fights. And by the way, is it minus 307? No, it's minus 330. So I wrote this a couple of days ago when he was minus 307. Who's only 6 pro fights against a low-level competition, who's making his UFC debut after making a long trip from Australia to Vegas against someone who hits as hard as Motta, seems irresponsible to me. The price is just too high, in my opinion. But if you like violence, I think that it probably hits here. The way that Tom Nolan fights, I'm looking for this to finish in under 1.5 rounds. And I wrote this also before I knew that BetOnline wasn't even going to offer a fight doesn't go to decision market here. Completely unbettable line at minus 1,400. So there's nothing we can do there either. So, but the pick is going to be Tom Nolan to win this fight by first round KO. So let's go back to the picks here. Big Train, Nolan by KO in round number 1, but that number on Motta is a little bit wide, and I think that there's some value on it, and I think that, maybe even Motta by first round KO could be a great little thing to sprinkle, 1/10 of a unit, maybe get 10-1 or better. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. And Bunes weighed 125. Yeah, I know, dude. Yeah, it was a crafty veteran move by Formiga, just showing up and saying, I'm not fighting unless I fight at 135. And then, by the way, I'm not going to fucking make 135 either. I'm going to come in at 139. 6'3" Tom Nolan at featherweight before. That's insane, man. That is crazy. How do you make 145 at 6'3"? It's crazy. Nolan rounds 1-2. I agree with you, Burner. Yeah, I got him around 1. Could be round 2 as well. We got Ruthless saying Motta was getting beat up with Ogden's jab last fight. If Nolan does decide to use his length, he should get the job done pretty easy. I don't think he will, Ruthless Soda Pop, but you're right about that. Because Motta, is somebody that kind of, he wants to land that big shot. So a guy like Ogden, who doesn't leave a lot of openings, who's pretty defensively responsible, who stays behind the jab, who doesn't really leave his chin up, didn't leave many opportunities for Motta to land that shot. I think that this matchup, this stylistic matchup, is better for Motta because I think Nolan will leave some openings, and I don't think Nolan's ever been hit in his career like Motta is gonna hit him if Motta lands. We got Lone Wolf DFS in the room. What is happening? He's saying, what's up, Weezy? I'm good, brother, man. Getting ready to break down the rest of these fights. We've got Terry saying I'm in the same height as Nolan, and I'm 265. Yeah, dude, I'm the same height as Nolan. Oh, no, wait, I'm an inch shorter because I'm 6'2". Yeah, Nolan's 6'3", dude. I mean, 6'3". What, dude, if I was 155 pounds, you guys would be having a candlelight vigil next to my hospital bed. There's no way I could ever get down to 155 pounds. I'd look like Christian Bale in The Machinist. It would be so bad. So, yeah, definitely. I don't know how this kid makes that weight. It's ridiculous. Gerald Gardner, 100 agree, under 1.5. Yeah, man, I'm with you there, dude. I think it's a parlay piece this week. I'd be surprised if this went under 1 point or if it went over 1.5. But if it did, it would mean that Nolan had just taken a much more cautious approach than what we're used to seeing him take in Dana White's Contender Series and in Eternal MMA back in Australia. Pickle Kush laughing. All right, you guys, let's move on to this next fight. It is going to be Westin Wilson. Ring-a-ding-ding, you guys. 2024 is here. The first card of 2024 is here. And yes, you got what you asked for. We wanted more Westin Wilson, and we got it. He is the plus 600 underdog to Jean Silva at minus 900. Fight doesn't go to decision. Thanks, Bet Online. Minus 1,600. This is what it actually shows when you go to bet on fight doesn't go to decision on Bet Online. It just gives you this. Wait, let me get you a better look. That's what Bet Online is showing you when they say, hey, I'd like to bet violence in the Phil Hawes fight. I'd like to bet violence in the Gene Silva fight. I'd like to bet violence in the Motta fight. This is what the icon comes up. They don't even give you a line. It's just 2 middle fingers. They say, hey, yeah, we charge juice, but we're not going to do anything to earn that privilege. We're not going to give you any bettable markets. So, yeah, fight doesn't go to decision. Minus 1,600 right here. So, anyway, let's first, so I got that up there. Let's get these stats up here for you guys. And let's first start talking about one of the most legendary fighters to ever step foot in the UFC's octagon. Is there something wrong with my stats? No? Okay, good. What the hell? I'm like, did I give my people a blank sheet and they didn't even tell me? Okay. Westin Wilson. Let's start talking about the legend himself, you guys. As a matter of fact, before I do it, let's try to repair the voice just a little bit, because this is too important of a fight for me, not for you guys not to hear the dulcet tones of your Uncle Weezy. God. I need to eat like a whole bulb of garlic and like 7 lemons and like what's the other stuff? Ginger. I need all the natural remedies I can get here. But we've got the right ticker. All right, good. Let's first start talking about Westin Wilson, you guys. He's a huge featherweight. 6'1" with a 73-inch reach. He's going to be 6 inches taller, and he's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage, in addition to being the southpaw in this southpaw versus orthodox matchup. Wilson has the experience advantages here, as he's got 12 more professional fights, 15 more minutes of pro cage time in 2.5 more years as a pro. Westin also has 1 more UFC fight and a couple more minutes of octagon time as Silva makes his UFC debut on Saturday. And Wilson's a bona fide finisher. He's got a 100% finish rate over 16 pro wins. He's got 11 submissions and 5 knockouts. He's also been finished in 6 of his 8 pro losses. So Westin has lost every fight where he hasn't gotten a finish. 6 finish losses and 2 decision losses. So it's clear that Wilson is pretty much a pure moment winner and still has no idea how to win minutes with his MMA skill set. Wilson trains at Upstate Karate with Stephen Thompson, so he has that traditional martial arts bladed stance. He bounces up and down on his toes. He's kind of got a kick-heavy attack. His switch kick to the head is pretty fast and powerful. And Wilson has a very tricky submission game. He has 11 wins by sub, 10 of them coming in the very first round. And he loves the rear naked choke and high elbow guillotine. And his long limbs make him a threat for triangle armbar series when he's on the bottom. He does a great job of using his guillotine to defend takedowns and finish fights. Now, Gene Silva's 8 years younger than Westin Wilson. He's also a finisher who has won only 1 decision. He's finished 10 of his 11 pro wins, 2 by submission, 8 by knockout, and he's never been finished as a pro, so I'll definitely give him the durability advantage in this spot. Gene does do his best work in the distance striking exchanges. He's 8 wins and 0 losses to the KO in his pro career, and it shows when you watch this kid kickbox. He's not the highest volume striker, but he mixes his weapons and his targets well. He's got a knack for finding the shot that ends fights, and after he gets his timing and finds his opponent's weak spots is usually when he strikes and lands that big shot. All but 2 of his 10 pro finishes come in the first round, and the other 2 come in the second, so he's definitely been a front-loaded fighter, but he showed off great conditioning in his Dana White Contender Series fight versus Vallejos, winning the second and third rounds decisively. So Gene throws with power, he loads up, and he looks for the kill shot, but if he doesn't get it, he's not somebody that's going to gas out and have a shitty third round as a result. Not like Westin Wilson is the type of fighter to come from behind and win in the third round anyway. So what we have first, we have to talk about this line on this fight. Gene Silva minus 900, Wilson plus 600. Silva is still a relative unknown due to the complete lack of tape on this guy. And his strength of schedule doesn't inspire the kind of confidence I need to lay minus 900 on anybody. Wilson's 6 inches taller. He's got a 4-inch reach advantage. He's a southpaw, and he has twice as many pro fights. Say what you will about Wilson, but he's a tricky opponent that he can pose some problems that inexperienced fighters maybe haven't dealt with before. So at this price, I could see sprinkles on Wilson by first round sub being worth it at a fat number, because in my opinion, that's how he wins this fight. Silva's younger. He's the far more dangerous striker. Maybe Wilson can catch Silva with a head kick at distance, but outside of that, I think Silva should be the far more likely guy to win minutes and moments on the feet here. And I don't know if Wilson's wrestling can get this fight to the ground if Silva doesn't want it there. So, yeah, I'm going with Gene Silva. I'm picking him to win this one by second round knockout. And I just don't see any way to really make money with this line where it is right now. Are we betting fight doesn't go to decision at minus 1,600, you guys? Are we parlaying that with the fight doesn't go to decision? In the Hawes fight at minus 1,400, a 2-leg parlay, 9 units to win 1. God help us, you guys. What do you have to say in the chat? What do you guys have for me, man? We got TNT singing "Ring a Ding Ding." Let's go, man. We got TNT laughing. He loves it. We got Ruthless Soda Pop saying, "Oh man, can't wait to see the odds on Ferreira versus Hawes to not go the distance. It is minus 1,400." Ruthless Soda Pop. I'll just give you the spoiler right now. Only 6 of Westin's 16 wins are to opponents with winning records. He gives me fraud vibes. Well, let me tell you something, Scenarius. He gives everybody fraud vibes. That's how you wind up being a plus 600 underdog to a guy who literally there's no tape on him. You got the Dana White Contender Series fight, and there are 2 other fights where you can actually watch tape of Gene Silva prior to Dana White's Contender Series. So, yeah, that's you and everybody else is getting massive fraud vibes out of Westin Wilson, and the bookies are saying they don't want any part of it. We got Lou Betcha in the room saying, "Oi, what's up, Lou? Always good to see you in here, man." We got Burner saying Silva by sub. You like the guillotine sub form? All right. Club and sub says Burner. And we got Tone Miggins. We got this is Pub Sports Radio very own saying, "Let's go, Uncle Weezy. It is time to eat." Yes, it is. I think Gene Silva is probably going to eat Westin Wilson for lunch on Saturday. But the next fight that we're going to talk about is a much, much higher level fight than this one. It is going to be Farid Basharat at minus 280 going up against Taylor Double Impact Lapilus plus 240. Fight doesn't go to decision at plus 180 for this fight. So let's get these stats up on the screen for you guys. And we're going to first start talking about a phenomenal prospect here in Farid Basharat. You guys, I'm almost out of water. I'm going to go fill this up. Give me 30 seconds, and I'll be back to break down the Basharat Lapilus fight. Yeah, it's my show, so I can fucking do that if I want to. I even got some water here, and I got some cold meds, so hopefully I can dump these into this water, let it fizz up, and then maybe I might sound like I'm somewhat healthy and not on my goddamn deathbed for you guys, so I can break down the remainder of fights that we got here, because we've still got a lot more work to do, you guys. So let me get some water here. And let's talk. Oh, there went the camera. Sorry, you guys. Settings. And there we go. All right. Let's get down to business here and first start talking about Farid Basharat. Now, Farid is going to be 5.5 years younger, and he's going to be 2 inches taller than Taylor Lapilus here. And Farid is a very well-rounded fighter at only 26 years of age. He's undefeated in his pro career in 11 fights. 7 of those wins come inside the distance. He's got 6 submissions, and he's got 1 knockout. And Farid seems to be most dangerous on the ground, but he's fully capable of winning minutes at distance as well with his smooth striking. Farid is comfortable everywhere. He's still improving, and he has the confidence of an undefeated fighter, and you can see why. This kid doesn't seem to have any weak spots yet in his mixed martial arts game. And Farid is a smooth, sharp, and accurate striker. Despite the fact that Farid throws 4.19 less distance strike attempts than his opponents do, he actually lands 0.27 more distance strikes per minute than his opponents do. This is a result of Farid being 52.5% accurate with his distance strikes, while his opponents are only 36% accurate. So it's obvious Farid is very good at touching his opponents without getting touched. He hasn't flashed power yet at this level, but that doesn't mean the power isn't there. What we have seen is Farid mix up his targets well and be very accurate and defensively responsible at the same time. Farid has done an excellent job of using his grappling game to win minutes and moments. Farid has finished his only UFC submission attempt, an arm triangle, in his last fight versus Rodriguez, and he's 6 wins and 0 losses to the submission in his pro career. Farid has outcontrolled his opponents in the UFC 45% to 16%, winning over 73% of the control time positions in his fights. And on DWCS, he racked up over 9 minutes of control time on only 3 takedowns. Once Farid gets people down, they tend to stay there, and he does great work on top, landing ground and pound and working to advance to dominant positions. Now, Taylor Lapilus is going to have a 2-inch reach advantage over Farid, and he's the southpaw in this southpaw versus orthodox matchup. Taylor has the overall and UFC experience advantages. Taylor has 11 more professional fights. He's got 120 more minutes of pro cage time and 6 more years as a pro fighter. Taylor made his MMA debut when Farid was 14 years old. Lapilus also has the UFC experience advantage with 3 more fights and 45 more minutes of octagon time. Taylor is a high-level southpaw kickboxer who does a great job of managing range and using his jab and straight left to score points. Taylor has 4 wins and 0 losses to the KO in his career, and he has the ability to find fight-ending body shots. Taylor has very good UFC distance striking metrics with a positive 1.97 distance striking differential with 39% accuracy and way above average 66.76% distance striking defense. I think Taylor's distance kickboxing skills are being severely underrated here. I think Taylor will be the better minute and moment winner at distance striking range due to how well he moves laterally and manages the distance with his opponent. Now, Taylor does his best work at distance striking range, but he's done an excellent job throughout his pro career of using his wrestling and grappling in reverse to keep fights standing. Taylor only gets 20% of the total takedowns that happen in his fights, and he attempts less than 11% of the total takedowns that take place in his fights, but he manages to win over 42% of the control time positions in his fights. Taylor has successfully defended 35 of 43 takedown attempts that he's seen in the UFC. That's an 81.4% takedown defense. And we've seen him face plenty of grapplers here in the UFC and on the regionals. And other than the 3rd round of the Denis Lavrentev fight, where he was controlled most of the 3rd round, he usually stops his opponent's takedowns and gets back up when he is taken down. And Taylor definitely has the superior strength of schedule over his pro career compared to Basharat. 4 more fights at the UFC level and way, way, way tougher regional scene competition. Definitely, Lapilus has fought the much better brand of competition over his pro career. This is a very high-level fight, you guys. Both of these guys are well-rounded and smart as they come. Farid is 5.5 years younger. He's 2 inches taller. He has the better wrestling and minute winning in the grappling exchanges. But Lapilus is going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. He's a southpaw. He has the overall and UFC experience advantages. I rate him at least as good, if not the better striker than Basharat. His defensive wrestling and grappling are very good, and he's fought the better brand of competition over his career. People are severely underrating Taylor Lapilus' skill set in this spot while simultaneously creaming their jeans over Basharat's skill set. I see this fight leaning ever so slightly towards the Basharat side due to the youth, the hype, and the UFC's bias towards making him and Javid stars. But without question, in my opinion, Lapilus is the side here. No way Farid should be 70% implied here against someone as experienced, well-rounded, and dangerous as Taylor. I love the plus 3.5 points handicap on the Lapilus side this week, as it should be available at plus money, as well as the Lapilus money line, and the fight goes to decision. But I am going to pick Farid Basharat to win this fight by split decision. And I have a small bet, a quarter of a unit on Bet Online for Farid Basharat to win this fight by split decision at plus 700. So Farid by split is the pick, but the bet is going to be Taylor Lapilus plus 3.5 points handicap. And I also have the over 2.5 rounds in this fight parlayed up with something else that we're going to talk about later. All right. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We got Terratea saying, I really like Farid. Farid and Acosta are my two favorite picks this weekend. Yeah, he's a phenomenal prospect. And yeah, I obviously hate to drop spoilers on you guys this early in the show, but I like Waldo Cortes Acosta to win this one as well. And Farid destroys him, says my guy Lone Wolf DFS. Be right back, you guys. I'm going to blow my nose real quick. All right, I'm back. And we got King Bicky saying, what does the plus 3.5 point handicap mean in MMA? So let's find a fight that went to decision, right? Nicolau versus Kape went to decision. What you do is you add up the three scores for the judges, right? So Chris Lee has it 28-29. So he's got Nicolau 29-28. Brian Miner has Nicolau 29-28. And Dave Hagen has Kape 29-28. So we take 28 plus 28 plus 29 for Kape. And we take 29 plus 29 plus 28 for Nicolau. You add up the three judges' scores at the end of the fight. If you have a plus 3.5 points handicap, but when you add up the scores, you lost by 3 points or less or won the fight, then you cash the bet. So for instance, if I bet on Taylor Lapilus plus 3.5 and Farid Basharat wins the fight 29-28 on all three judges' scorecards, that means he wins by 3. 29-28 is a 1 point win. Add up that 1 point win across three judges' scorecards. He wins by 3 points, but he needed to cover by 3.5. So that means I would cash that bet, King Bicky. So it just means if the fight goes to decision, you add up the three judges' scorecards, and if your guy lost by less than 3.5 points, you win the bet. Real Fight Picks in the room saying, I'm wicked late, not in sync yet. Happy to see you though, T.O. It's good to see you in here, my man. Thank you for hanging out. Taylor Tia saying, I hit Basharat sub plus 375 last time he fought. I could see it happening again. There's a good chance Farid will spend time in top position. Sub is always love from there. Yeah, dude, he would be the first guy to submit Taylor Lapilus in his 19-fight career. I don't think he's subbing. Dude, I don't think anybody's ever been close to subbing Lapilus in his career. Lapilus has got an underrated grappling game. But, it's a fight. If he lands a big shot, then he can absolutely sub him. But I don't think he's taking him down, advancing position, and putting him away via the sub. But it is MMA, so you never say never. That is for damn sure. All right, you guys, let's move on to this next fight, which is going to be Marcus the Maniac McGhee at minus 250 going up against Gaston the Dream Killer Bolanos at plus 210. Fight doesn't go to decision for this fight, sitting at minus 250. Let's first start talking, as I get the stats up here, about our guy, the Maniac, Marcus McGhee. Marcus, hang on. Marcus is 1 inch taller, and he's going to have a 1 inch reach advantage over Gaston. He's also a switch stance fighter versus an orthodox, which is an on-paper advantage as well. And they call Marcus the Maniac for a good reason. Dude is a finisher. He finished all 8 of his pro wins inside the distance. He's got 1 submission and 7 knockouts. Dude comes forward, he throws with power, and when he sees his opponent hurt, he swarms. Marcus is 7-0 to the KO in his career, and he's finished both of his UFC opponents so far, one by knockout, one by submission. Marcus's striking has been his bread and butter throughout his brief MMA career. He's a dynamic and explosive kickboxer. He's got an impressive 7 wins and 0 loss record to the KO. So even against a very dangerous kickboxer like Bolanos, McGhee won't be out of his depth there at all. Marcus is showing solid metrics in his 2 UFC fights so far with a positive 1.55 distance striking differential with 46.67% accuracy and over 78% defense. It's a small sample size, and Marcus has been low volume thus far in that sample size, but his 2 UFC knockdowns and only 28 distance strikes landed means he's landing a knockdown on 7.14% of the distance strikes he lands. So obviously this dude also carries a ton of power, and it shows on tape with how he starched the shit out of poor JP Bays with a nasty right hook. And the Journey Newson finish was a rear naked choke, but it was set up with a nasty straight left from the southpaw stance that dropped Newson. Then McGhee followed him down and finished with that rear naked choke. It's going to be so much fun watching these two trade bombs in the pocket. Now, Gaston Bolanos is over 2 years younger than Marcus, and he's got the experience advantage. He's got 1 more pro fight, almost 10 more minutes of pro cage time, and McGhee turned pro in MMA at the age of 29 after a 5-fight amateur career that for some reason lasted over 6 years. And Gaston had a long professional Muay Thai career prior to turning pro in MMA at the age of 24. So Gaston definitely is the more experienced fighter here, even though it appears close on paper. And the strength of Bolanos' MMA game is his extremely dangerous Muay Thai striking. His signature move is the spinning back elbow. You can watch the highlight reel KO online over Rick the Gorilla Gutierrez. If you want to see how he sets up this devastating technique, check out that video. But his overall striking skill set is top-notch. He throws everything with power, whether it's his overhand right from distance, the tight hooks he throws in the pocket, or the vicious knees and elbows he unloads within the clinch. If you let Gaston stay comfortably at distance striking range and kickbox this guy without wrestling him, you're taking a massive gamble. And in this sport, there is a very fine line between daredevil and dumbass. If McGhee can wrestle and he chooses not to, he might wind up looking like a dumbass here. In Gaston's debut against an experienced kickboxer and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in Aaron Phillips, Gaston had a positive 3.66 distance striking differential, 46% accuracy, 57% defense. He threw 12.6 attempts per minute at distance, while Phillips only threw 5. In addition to that, Gaston used his low leg kicks to maintain the range at distance. Everything Gaston throws on the feet is meant to knock you senseless, and he's still technical and does a great job of mixing up his weapons and his targets. This is a banger of a striker versus striker matchup. Absolutely love the matchmaking here. 17 of 19 combined fights for these guys have finished inside the distance, and 13 of their 14 combined pro wins come by knockout, and all 3 of their combined losses come by submission. So neither guy has ever been KO'd as a pro. If this fight plays out on the feet at distance striking range, I think this line is way off. Bolanos is every bit as talented, diverse, and powerful of a striker as Marcus is. Neither one of these guys is lost by KO, only by submission. So this should be a way closer to a pick'em if we think this is going to be a striking match. And I think it will mostly be that due to the fact that I saw zero evidence whatsoever that Marcus McGhee ever offensively wrestles. 0. So laying minus 265 on the older, less experienced fighter here because of a perceived grappling advantage seems like a minus EV move. Maybe Marcus surprises us here and he shows off some wrestling and he's able to grind out Bolanos on the ground, win minutes and potentially moments there. But I think the most likely way this fight plays out is a ding-dong Donnybrook of a kickboxing war where somebody most likely gets served and served violently. I parlayed the under 2.5 rounds here at minus 215. There's 17 of 19 combined pro fights for these guys have finished in that time span. And I think the Bolanos money line at plus 230 is worth a shot, especially if I'm right and this winds up being a kickboxing match. I think McGhee by sub is worth a sprinkle, and so could Bolanos by KO. But I think the best play is to parlay the fight doesn't go to decision or the under 2.5 here and just hope somebody gets knocked out or submitted, obviously. I'll pick Gaston Bolanos to win this fight by second round KO by setting up a big shot by working the legs of Marcus McGhee, but it's with very low confidence. I guess I'm picking Bolanos here because I want to illustrate the fact that Marcus McGhee is not a grappler. So I don't know if the people that are betting McGhee really believe that he's 75% implied on the feet here against a former Muay Thai world champion. I don't know where they're getting that idea. I don't know where they see that on tape. I mean, even Bolanos, who was fighting some very mid dudes in Bellator, still has fought the better brand of competition. Don't tell me that, Journey Newson or JP Bays are wins that anybody should be creaming their jeans over here. So yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna say Gaston Bolanos by second round KO. And I might get to the money line here. It's not something I'm running to the window for, but I do think Gaston Bolanos is just as live to land a big shot at distance as Marcus McGhee is here. He's younger, he's more experienced, and I think he's got a little bit crisper striking, but we will find out on Saturday. The only action that I have on this fight is that under 2.5 so far. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We got McGhee looks like Blanca from Street Fighter. I haven't played Street Fighter. My girlfriend and I used to play Street Fighter, and I used to whoop her ass at Street Fighter back in the day. And then one day, she invited me over to play Street Fighter, and evidently she had been practicing and shit. She wound up kicking my ass like 6 fights in a row, and I got all butthurt and left. It was terrible. I felt completely and totally emasculated, and she snuck up on me. She practiced without telling me, and then wound up kicking my ass. So thanks for bringing that up, Victor. But yeah, man, I think you're kind of right about that. He does look like Blanca from Street Fighter. We got Remdog in the room saying, "Oi, Happy New Year, Weezy. I'll be rewatching the show when I get home. Glad to be back from break. Hey, the new year has started, you guys." Billy Nicholson in the room saying, "Oi, just tuning in, Weezy. You feeling good? Let's get back to business. Still a little bit sick, but that's all right, man. We're getting back to business either way." I've been watching the tape on McGhee. He always strikes first. I'd be very surprised if he has a grapple-heavy game plan. Yeah, me too. I think he's going to strike with Bolanos. And I think that because of that, this is going to be a very entertaining fight. And I think that somebody winds up sleeping. So I really do like the under 2.5 rounds here. Yeah, can I share the screen for the stats? For sure. Yeah, that's what's up there right now. Ruthless Soda Pop. Oh, shit, dude. I didn't even go back to the screen. My bad, you guys. I started flipping off the camera when I was so passionate about the horse shit fight doesn't go to decision lines, and I never actually shared the screen back. So here we are. There are the stats. Gaston Bolanos, Marcus McGhee, always available, though, on the Patreon, you guys. And then for all you guys that are on the Patreon, as you know, I write up all of these fights, and this is something like 20 some odd pages and notes here. I will be releasing these to all the Patreon members. These are the show notes that I write up every week for this show so that I've got, everything, all my thoughts kind of organized, and I look at all the possible angles here, and I make these write-ups available to all of my Patreon members. So that's another great reason to join the Patreon and get all those fantastic fight write-ups as part of your subscription. But let's move on to this next fight here, as we have got Matheus Semelsberger, Semi the Jedi, as he is known, at minus 132, going up against Preston Pressure Parsons at plus 112. Fight doesn't go to decision here. Juice to the tits. thanks, Bet Online, at minus 300 here. Let's get these stats up on the screen. Let me get a little water down my throat. And let's first start talking about Semi the Jedi here, as Matt is going to be 2 inches taller than Preston, and he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage. In addition to that, he is a switch stance fighter against an orthodox, which is an advantage on paper as well. Matt has the overall and UFC experience advantages with 3 more pro fights, 100 more minutes of cage time, in 2.5 years less as a pro. So not only is Matt more experienced, he's also been busier as a pro, fighting over 2.5 times per year, while for Preston, it's been about 1.5 times a year. Matt also has the UFC experience advantage with 6 more fights and 70 more minutes of octagon time. I like Matt's striking advantage in this matchup. The 2 inches of height and the 4 inches of reach really help because Matt is a very big 170-pounder, and he's also a very explosive athlete. So he can explode into range, flashing big power, as evidenced by his 10 UFC knockdowns in only 9 fights. He's landing a knockdown on 3% of the distance strikes that he lands. Matt's distance metrics aren't phenomenal, but that power, the above-average volume, the length, the explosive athletic ability make him a tough opponent to strike with. And I think if he finds ways to deal with Parsons' pressure, he should be able to land big shots while Preston walks forward. And Matt has 6 more UFC fights, so he definitely has the superior strength of schedule in the UFC, and his wins grade out better on paper as well. Now, Preston is almost 3 years younger than Semelsberger, and he lives up to his nickname, Pressure. This dude never stops moving forward, using his striking to set up his entries on his takedowns. He brings the necessary conditioning to push a nasty pace, and his ground game is very good. Preston has finished 9 of his 10 pro wins, all of them by submission. The only guy he didn't finish was Evan Elder, and he had several deep arm triangle attempts in that fight. Preston throws above average volume on the feet. He walks forward, and he attempts 9.33 takedowns per 15 minutes, getting 3.11 of them. And when he's on the ground, he's very aggressive, attempting to finish fights. He's averaging 3.55 submission attempts per 15 and 0.89 reverses per 15 minutes. Preston pushes a hellacious pace, and it makes him a very difficult opponent to deal with. And Preston's grappling game is where he does his best work. Like I mentioned before, Preston does a good job of using his striking to set up his takedown entries. He gets his takedowns at a 33% clip, and he outcontrols his opponents 39.42% to 18.26%, winning over 68% of the control time positions that he's been in. Preston has 100% takedown defense on 3 attempts against, and he has a very good get-up game when he's the one on the bottom. He also is just as dangerous hunting for arm triangles and rear naked chokes when he gets on top as he is going for his armbar triangle series from the bottom. Matt has way below average 50% takedown defense on 24 attempts against, and he's been controlled by his UFC opponents over 20% of his cage time. So the door should be open for Preston to utilize his wrestling and grappling advantages in this fight. This is going to be a really fun fight. I favor Semelsberger at distance and Parsons on the mat. Matt is taking this fight on less than 2 weeks' notice, so that is something we need to keep in mind here, especially with the high volume pressure mixed with grappling pace that Parsons brings. I don't like how I've seen Matt get stuck on his back when he gets put there, and when Parsons gets on top, he's not looking to hold you down. He looks to pass the dominant positions and finish fights with submissions. I could see Parsons finishing this fight on the mat, but I also surely could see Semi getting a knockout here, exploiting Parsons' terrible 53.33% distance striking defense and finding a big knockdown like he already has 10 times in his 9 UFC fights. The line has Semi as a small minus 130 favorite at the time of writing, and I do agree with that line. Semi is taller, he's longer, he switches stances, and he's very explosive and powerful on the feet. And Parsons gets hit way too much for my liking. Parsons' ground game is legit, and Semi's 50% takedown defense is there to be exploited, as is his lack of a good get-up game. So if Parsons can get this fight to the ground, I see him winning minutes and very likely moments there. Wherever this fight goes, somebody is going to be very dangerous. So at the time of writing, I said that I was going to be looking to bet an under 2.5, or a fight doesn't go to decision here when those lines become available. For now, I'm going to pick Preston Parsons, though, to win this fight by second round submission. But I honestly think this fight is very close. And whichever guy successfully implements their game plan is probably going to look minus 250 in hindsight. But first, let me just make this pick here, as it's going to be Preston Parsons by submission in round number 2. But I wanted to show you guys this on the prop template, as I was looking to bet the violence here. And I don't know where they opened up. Here, let me go to fight odds. And the under 1.5 right now is at plus 125, right? So it was plus 135. When I saw it plus 135, that's a 44% implied probability. And usually you see this number look similar to this number because the under 1.5 happens 33% of the time. Fight doesn't go to decision, happens about 50% of the time. So usually you see this line be priced about 17% more than this line. Well, 17 plus 44 makes 61. They priced this, Bet Online did it, minus 325 is where they opened it. So they actually priced it 31% higher than where they priced the under 1.5. And actually at plus 135, which is where it was priced when they had the audacity to open up this line, is actually 34%. So they put a 34% gap in price between the under 1.5 and the fight doesn't go to decision when they opened up this line. So I remember I was telling Brady and he agreed with me on Stat Diggers that, like, the way to play this fight, because if it gets to the ground, Parsons is going to be crazy dangerous with his submissions. If Parsons can't get this to the ground, he's too hittable. And Semelsberger has too much power for him not to find the big shot that knocks him out eventually. So I was saying, bet the fight doesn't go to decision. And it really should have been priced probably around minus 160. They fucking opened it at minus 325. So yeah, it's a completely unbettable line. But just because they're opening these lines doesn't mean that more reputable books that take more risk, like Bet Rivers, like FanDuel, like DraftKings, won't be hopefully they won't be looking to Bet Online for guidance on how to open these lines, because Bet Online is not even offering bettable fight doesn't go to decision lines anymore. If you are somebody that likes betting unders, you should just cash in your Bet Online account, because you're never going to find a bettable line there ever again. I just wanted to illustrate how absurd their pricing has been for fight doesn't go to decision lines as of late. But anyway, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. As yes, I can screw it. And we got Patreon is the shit. Yeah, dude. Thank you, man. Lone Wolf DFS is on the Patreon, and and I do a lot of hard work there. And there's going to be a lot better stuff coming up this year on that Patreon with the new products that I have ready for you guys. And Jeddah KOs him in first round. That is absolutely on the table. And I hope that one of those two things happens. Preston gets a submission, or Jedi gets that first round KO, because I think that I'll be on a violence bet as long as these other books don't look to Bet Online for guidance on how to open the violence prop here. All right, let's move on to the next fight, which is going to be Andrei Arlovski at plus 475 going up against Salsa Boy, Waldo Cortes Acosta. Cortes Acosta, a prohibitive favorite here at minus 650. fight doesn't go to decision here, sitting at minus 300 for this fight. So Andrei Arlovski obviously is going to have the experience advantage. 58 pro fights, 520 minutes of pro cage time, professional since the year 1998, a career spanning almost 25 years now. I think Andrei Arlovski has been a professional mixed martial artist about just as long as my guy DFS by the numbers has been alive. This guy is a veteran. So, 22 more UFC fights Andrei Arlovski has since the year 2013 than Waldo Cortes Acosta. Almost 235 more minutes of octagon time compared to Waldo. So with age comes a lot of high-level experience. And Andrei's a solid boxer. He reinvented himself as a mixed martial artist, throwing away his brawling, all-action style for a more measured and technical approach designed to avoid big damage and protect his chin. Andrei has solid UFC distance striking metrics, a positive 1.16 distance striking differential, almost 46% accuracy, 59% defense, both above average for the division. He stays slightly busier at range, lands more, and he's more accurate. Andrei does a good job of winning minutes at distance, but a lousy job of landing big shots. He's only landed 2 knockdowns and over 1,000 distance strikes landed since 2013, and he's absorbed 8 knockdowns while only landing 2. So while Andrei can win minutes, his chin allows his opponents to find moments against him, as Andrei has been KO'd a whopping 12 times in his pro career, and he's 2 wins and 5 losses to the knockout in the UFC since 2013, with his last KO win being a spectacular come-from-behind victory versus Travis Brown back in 2015. Andrei has fought, beaten, and lost to the better and more experienced brand of UFC competition. Lately, their level of competition has been comparable, but obviously Andrei is a former champ with 58 pro fights, so he's fought the way better guys over his career. Now, Waldo Cortes Acosta, 12 and a half years younger, 1 inch taller, 1 inch reach advantage, very durable, ton of heart, very good conditioning for a heavyweight. He seems to be impervious to leg kicks as well. He absorbs as many as anyone I have ever seen, and he keeps fighting. This dude is a tough out and a tough fight for anyone. And Waldo is a very good boxer, and his UFC striking metrics show it. He's got a positive 2.92 distance striking differential with just under 50% accuracy and 52.5% defense. Waldo stays busy behind a really nice, crisp, accurate jab, and it shows in his positive 5.44 distance strike attempt differential. But Waldo has the power that Andrei definitely lacks at this point in his career. Waldo only has 1 UFC knockdown, but when his lead leg isn't getting chopped up and he finds the range on his jab, Waldo starts pressuring a little and putting his combinations together. And if that overhand right lands, the power will be there to end the fight against almost anyone. Waldo can definitely win both minutes and moments at distance striking range. His biggest weakness is because he works behind his jab. He's heavy on his lead leg. And we saw DeLima, Vandera, Bresky, and Sherman repeatedly land calf kicks that were not checked against him. Waldo has absorbed 102 leg kicks in 4 UFC fights. So he needs to learn to start checking those kicks and countering with power shots when they do come his way. This should be pretty much a kickboxing match with 4-ounce gloves. Both guys prefer to box at range, as evidenced by 75% and 84% of their respective UFC octagon times being spent at distance striking range. Waldo is almost 13 years younger than Andrei. He's got better conditioning. He's got better durability, more heart, more power, more speed, and more output. Andrei's a crafty veteran who actually doesn't look totally washed yet, but he can't take big shots anymore, and Waldo is definitely going to land some powerful shots here. Andrei's a legend, but Father Time is undefeated, and I would be shocked to see Andrei find a way to get his hand raised here outside of a horrible judge's decision, which we have seen in our Arlovski fights before, in the Fat Collier fight, the Vandera fight. the Carlos Felipe fight, the Tanner Bozer fight, and the Felipe Lins fights. So, I mean, like, if I were Waldo, I'd be looking to finish this guy for fear of him being the 6th guy getting screwed by a judge's decision in an Arlovski fight since 2019. And I mean, I know it's a bit of a conspiracy theory, but it is a fact that Andrei Arlovski no longer gets win bonuses. So let's just pretend that we're in an alternate universe for a minute here. And in this alternate universe, judges were scumbags that would actually let you pay them and to give whatever decision you pay them to give. And let's say you went up to these scumbag judges and you said, as a member of the UFC, we make more money if this fight goes to decision and Andrei Arlovski wins because we don't have to pay a win bonus to Waldo Cortes Acosta. So how about, if Waldo beats him, you say Andrei won, and we give you half of what we would have given Waldo Cortes Acosta as a win bonus. You win, we win, everybody's happy, except for the people that bet on Waldo Cortes Acosta. Now, of course, this is an alternate universe, and this would never happen here on planet Earth, and especially not with the Nevada Boxing Commission, a group of people that are above board and very, very reliable and really unbribable. And it's not rife with nepotism or corruption. So, like I say, we're painting an alternate scenario here, but there have been a few guys who have gotten screwed in judges' decisions in Andrei Arlovski fights, is all your Uncle Weezy is saying. So I think Waldo finds the range on his jab before Andrei does. I think he stays busier than Andrei, and once he has that range, the pressure and combinations will follow, resulting in a second round starching. Waldo Cortes Acosta by a brutal second round KO is the prediction for this fight. So, Salsa Boy, Dominican Republic, stand up, Waldo Cortes Acosta by second round knockout. Let's see what you guys are saying here. Let's see, your ass shaving of the week. Yeah, well, and we're going to find out shortly here. It can't be Waldo Cortes Acosta. Is Waldo Cortes Acosta, in your Uncle Weezy's opinion, going to shave the ass of Andrei Arlovski? The answer is yes. Do you need me to make him the ass shaving of the week when he's minus 650 on the money line? Nah, you guys already know. So your Uncle Weezy is going to go a little bit lower on the favorite totem pole here to pick out an ass shaving of the week. Hard to imagine Andrei stealing another split decision, or is it, says JP, or is it? But we would probably have to go to that alternate universe where the members of the Nevada Boxing Commission are complete scumbags and corrupt. Because right here on planet Earth in Las Vegas, that never happens. The Golden Octagon in the room saying, oh, yes, Happy New Year, Weezy and chat. Good to see you hanging out in here. Let's get some money this year, Golden Octagon. We got JP saying, I think you're on to something, Weezy. Appreciate you, JP. Waldo by KO says, Lone Wolf, I agree with you. No decision. Yes, sir. I agree with that as well. And Giga Chat of NPCs likes my alternate universe theory. All right, you guys, 52 of you hanging out here in live on the first Just the Tip of 2024. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe. Please consider joining the Patreon. Please consider leaving me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of the show. Let me know what your favorite pick is. Let me know what your favorite bet is, your favorite parlay, anything that I need to know. Put it down there. I appreciate you guys. All right. And we got totally T4K tout in the room saying, hello, mates. We got JP saying, Nevada Commish is of stellar morals and ethics. I couldn't have said it any better myself. I'm going to leave that up on the screen during our next breakdown here so you all are reminded of that fact. Phil, no high pause, ladies and gentlemen, plus 110. The underdog to Brunno Ferreira at minus 130. Fight doesn't go to decision. Thank you, Bet Online. Minus 1,400? Really? Well, yes, that is the case. But let's get the stats up here on the screen for you guys And let's first start talking about a man with no hype on him at all, Mr. Phil Hawes, after I get a sip of this ice-cold, delicious water. That's good water, you guys. All right. Phil Hawes advantages in this spot. We've got Phil being 2 inches taller and having a 5-inch reach advantage. Phil has the overall and UFC experience advantages over Brunno. 6 more pro fights, an hour more of pro cage time, 5 more years as a pro mixed martial artist. Phil Hawes also has 5 more fights at the UFC level and 45 more minutes of octagon time. And Phil's an explosive athlete with serious power. He's well-rounded. He's a proven finisher. He's got a high-level wrestling background. When Phil is at his best, he looks damn near unbeatable. And Phil's striking is really good. He's got a phenomenal plus 3.2 distance striking differential, very, very good 58% accuracy, and above average 60.5% distance striking defense. He stays busy, throwing just under 14 distance strike attempts per minute, and he flashes power, landing a knockdown on 0.89% of the distance strikes that he lands. 2 of Phil's 4 UFC wins come by way of knockout, and 8 of his 12 pro wins are by way of knockout. The elephant in the room, though, when we talk about Phil Hawes, is his chin. He can't take a punch. And at this point, his chin falls into a similar category as guys like Jason Witt and Malcolm Gordon and Shannon Ross. Phil has been finished in all 5 of his pro losses, and 4 of those 5 finishes come by way of brutal knockouts to guys like Ikram Aliskerov, Roman Dolidze, who also tore up his knee prior to the knockout, Chris Cortes, and Julian Marquez, who punted his head into the cheap seats on Dana White's Contender Series. That was probably the knockout that changed Phil Hawes' career, was the Julian Marquez knockout on Dana White's Contender Series. You have to hold your breath whenever Hawes is in there, because he can be looking incredible and eat one big shot and he's starched on the canvas and the fight is over. Hawes' chin is a major concern at this point in his career, and it makes it almost impossible to back him. Phil is without question, though, the better wrestler here, too. Ferreira's got a good submission, and he's got a good top game, but Phil was a junior college standout at Iowa Central, a program known for launching the MMA careers of guys like Cain Velasquez, John Jones, Colby Covington. Phil has 8 UFC takedowns, and he's allowed 0. He outcontrols his opponents 36% to 8.75%, winning over 80% of the control time positions that his fights are in. Phil doesn't have the cardio to wrestle hard for 3 rounds, but it's there when he needs it, and you always know the capability is there for him to mix in that wrestling if it's in his best interest. And his 100% takedown defense allows him to keep fights standing when he feels he's the better striker. And Phil has 7 UFC fights to only 2 for Brunno. Both guys have fought a solid level of competition at the UFC level, but Hawes, being the more experienced guy, has fought the tougher opponents over their respective timelines. Now, Bruno Ferreira is almost 4 years younger than Phil. He's a switch stance fighter versus an orthodox fighter, which on paper is an advantage as well. Brunno is a proven finisher. The Hulk has finished all 10 of his pro wins, 7 knockouts and 3 submissions. He has power in both hands. He's got a crushing top game with solid ground and pound, and he's finished fights via arm triangle, rear naked choke, and anaconda choke. So he has a solid Brazilian jiu-jitsu game as well. And Bruno's a tricky striker. He trains at Evolution Tau alongside alongside Bruno Silva. And he's on the feet, he's constantly switching stances, which makes it hard to find a rhythm against him. He definitely throws with power and purpose, and he's got legit power in both hands. And his kicks are very powerful as well, and that power will serve him really well against a guy like Hawes, who is not known for his durability. His highlight reel KO over a quality opponent in Gregory Rodriguez got his UFC debut, was an incredible start to his UFC career, but he got knocked out in his next fight by a debuting fighter in Nursultan Ruzaboyev. So there also could be chin concerns on the Ferreira side as well. This one should be fun for as long as it lasts. These guys have combined for 28 pro fights. 26 of them have finished inside the distance, and the weighted average fight time for these guys in the UFC is 5.67 minutes. Both guys have serious power. Both guys are competent on the ground and have the ability to finish fights there as well. And all 6 of these guys' career combined losses have come inside the distance. So neither guy is known for their durability. Whoever lands the first big shot probably wins this fight. And since that's harder to predict than the fact that the big shot is very likely to land, so I would say the under 1.5 rounds in this fight could be a good parlay piece this week, although it is very much overpriced. Maybe Hawes wrestles this time around so he can protect that chin of his, but his cardio will likely let him down late if he chooses that path and doesn't find an early finish. Book the fight doesn't go to decision in under 1.5 rounds as the potential parlay pieces this week, but I'll go with Phil Hawes to win this fight by second round knockout, but no way I can back his money line due to the chin concerns. I'll pick Phil here because of the height, reach, experience, and wrestling advantages he has, knowing that he's just as likely to land a big shot as Ferreira is. Pick is Hawes by second round knockout, but the best bet here, in my opinion, is definitely violence. And we are going to pick no hype, Phil Hawes to knock out Brunno Ferreira in round number 2. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Glass cannon, Phil Hawes, that is for sure. What's Hawes, the Chindex here? He's getting knocked down on 2.22% of the distance strikes that he absorbs. That is 0.89 knockdowns absorbed per 15 minutes spent at distance. And that is entirely too much. He's got a decent distance striking number at 60.53, and he's absorbing, 3.2 less distance strikes per minute than what he lands, but he's just 2.22%. That brings you to like a point where you're going to, like 1 out of 22 strikes all of a sudden puts you in a situation, I'm sorry, 2%, like a bit like, so it'll be like 1 out of 47 strikes or something like that lands is going to put you on your ass. And you're going to absorb about 47 significant strikes per fight. So, it's just not good enough right now. Teretea saying, I feel like Phil might get this done, but no way am I sweating out a Phil Hawes ticket. I would literally die from stress. And it's true, man. It makes it almost impossible to back Phil Hawes because even though that he'll probably be the better boxer, that he'll probably be the better wrestler, that he's fought the better brand of competition, that he's more experienced, he's been doing this for longer, that he could be winning, and just get caught at some point, and then the fight is over. And it's terrifying betting on guys in cage fighting who can't take a punch. And that's where we've gotten to with Phil Hawes' durability. It is a major concern. And he's saying probably what I'm going to be doing here, which is going to sit back and enjoy what's going to be a really fun fight to watch. It should be an interesting one for sure. Yeah, I think Hawes is going to look unstoppable this fight. Get all of us back on the train and then get knocked out by Rodolfo Vieira and Alpha Jab. Dude, I think you just completely said it perfectly there, man. And Terry Mizzo saying, Happy New Year, Weezy. Right back at you, brother. Pucker up if you bet on Phil. Yeah, dude, it's going to be rough, man. It's going to be rough if you bet on Phil, but he is the better fighter on paper here. And if the chin holds up, I think he'll look minus 250. But if the chin holds up, if being the pivotal word in that sentence, my friends. All right, you guys, next fight is a real banger. Ricky Simon, minus 180, going up against Mario Bautista, plus 155. Fight doesn't go to decision here, plus money here, plus 120. So let's first start talking about a phenomenal fighter here in Ricky Simon, one of my favorites in the bantamweight division, which is saying a lot because the bantamweight division is just full of incredible athletes and fighters. Now, Ricky Simon is going to have the overall and the UFC experience advantages. 9 more pro fights than Mario. 135 more minutes of pro cage time and over 3 more years as a pro mixed martial artist. Ricky also has 2 more fights at the UFC level and 65 more minutes of octagon time. Ricky's a good boxer who flashes some power and has a fast, accurate jab and a reliable and powerful straight right hand. His UFC striking metrics aren't great. He's got a negative 1.01 distance striking differential. He's got below average 38% accuracy and below average output at only 9.28 distance strike attempts per minute, which is almost 2.5 less than the divisional average. That being said, Ricky has flashed power in the Assunção, Yaya, and Shore fights. A great straight right to the temple is what set up the finishing sequence in the Shore fight, and it was a right hook to the temple that dropped Rafi Assunção, allowing Simon to finish with an uppercut while Rafi was on his ass. And Ricky is landing a knockdown on 1.31% of the distance strikes he's landed, and Bautista's been dropped twice in the UFC and knocked out once. So even though the metrics aren't eye-popping, Ricky has good fundamentals, and he can flash fight-ending power in his right hand. But Ricky does his best work with his wrestling and in the grappling exchanges. Ricky, excuse me, guys. Ricky averages a whopping 4.94 takedowns per 15 minutes on 10.87 attempts, both way above average in terms of grappling output for the division. His 45.45% takedown accuracy and 77% takedown defense are both way above average for the division. Ricky outcontrols his opponents in control time positions 33% to 3.75%, winning almost 90% of the control time positions that his fights are in. Ricky has a wrestling background. He was a Washington State high school wrestling champion. Perhaps Ricky's best attribute as a fighter, though, is his elite conditioning, and I mean elite. I've never seen this guy get tired, and even if he misses his first couple of takedown attempts, he doesn't get discouraged, and he keeps chaining attempts together until he gets you down. If you get up, he just shoots in again, over and over without getting tired. So not only does Ricky know how to wrestle at an elite level, but he has the cardio to push that pace hard for the full 15, categorically refusing to fuck off. He went a hard 3 rounds with Merab Dvalishvili and had enough left in the tank to out-grapple Merab in the third and put him in a deep-mounted guillotine that wound up sort of finishing the fight. If you watch that fight, you know what I'm talking about. But Ricky has by far the superior UFC strength of schedule as well. The combined records of the guys Ricky Simón has beaten in the UFC, 62 wins and 32 losses, while the guys Mario Bautista has beaten have a combined UFC record of 20 wins and 25 losses. Ricky has fought, beaten, and lost to the better brand of competition at the UFC level, and in particular, his wins over Merab Dvalishvili, Montel Jackson, Hani Yahya, Ray Borg, Gaetano Perello, Brian Kelleher, Rafi Assunção, and Jack Shore. Those wins rate better than Mario's wins over Jinsu Sun, Miles Johns, Jay Perrin. Brian Kelleher is the same opponent. Lopez, Canetti, and Blackshear. But Mario Bautista is going to be 1 year younger, and he's the bigger flyweight at 3 inches taller than Simon. Mario also is a switch stance fighter, and even though these guys are listed at the same reach, it's without a doubt Bautista who's the longer, rangier bantamweight capable of covering more distance with his striking. Mario has the superior UFC striking metrics. He's got a positive 0.94 distance striking differential with above average 44.5% accuracy and 59.3% defense. He stays busy, attempting 13.6 distance strike attempts per minute, landing 6.05 of them. And that 6.05 distance strikes landed per minute is 1.45 more than the divisional average. Mario is tall and rangy. He throws his punches straight, taking full advantage of his length. He switches stances a lot, making it hard to get his timing and rhythm. And his kicks, in particular, his jump knees from distance, cover a lot of ground really fast and can definitely drop you if they land. We haven't seen the power yet translate at this level for Bautista, as he only has one knockout win and one UFC knockdown in his 9 fights, but he does use his length well. He mixes up his weapons. He flashes that spectacular jump knee, which has to be respected, and he stays busy, attempting and landing more than his opponents do. So I could see Bautista being the superior minute winner at range in this matchup. And Mario's grappling game has looked really good at the UFC level. He went through Kelleher, Benito Lopez, and Guido Canetti like a hot knife through butter, and he looked at a way higher level grappling than all 3 of those guys. Mario has 6 wins and 1 loss to the submission in his pro career, and 3 of his 7 UFC wins come by way of submission. Mario has way above average 50% takedown accuracy on 26 UFC attempts, and he's averaging 2.72 takedowns per 15 minutes. Mario's takedown defense at only 56% is below average for the division, and that's concerning against a wrestler like Ricky Simon. However, Bautista has a great get-up game when he's taken down, and his grappling efficiency numbers at the UFC level are really good. He outcontrols his opponents 27% to 12%, winning almost 69% of the control time positions in his fights, and he's active trying to finish on the ground, attempting 1.26 submissions per 15 minutes. So it does look like Ricky's going to have to work really hard to get Mario down and to keep him there by getting into dominant positions on the ground. This is a hell of a fight. Bautista's finally getting up the step up in competition that he deserves after putting together an impressive 5-fight winning streak, with 3 of those wins being submissions. Simon is off a tough loss to Song Yadong, where he was outclassed on the feet and unable to win minutes consistently with his wrestling against the slippery Song. Ricky is more experienced. He flashes more power on the feet, and he's definitely the better wrestler here. He has elite conditioning, and he's fought the much tougher strength schedule. And beaten the way better names. Mario's a little younger and definitely taller and longer fighter, and I think he's the better minute winner at distance striking range if he can deal with Simon's pressure, and his ground game is really underrated and efficient while also being dangerous. I love this matchmaking. I think this is going to be a high-level, exciting fight. These guys have been finished in 5 of their 6 combined losses, and we've seen Simon and Bautista get flatlined in the UFC, and both these guys are very dangerous with their submissions on the ground. I think the under 2.5 rounds at plus 140 and the fight doesn't go to decision at plus 120 are cheeky plays this week, and my prop template has it as a trifecta bet. So I think it's a cheap line that could potentially be live to cash. I'm going to have to pick Ricky Simon to win this fight. He has too many advantages on paper, and his level of competition is much better than Mario's. I'll say Simon finds a second-round submission here and what should be a high-level and all-action-packed fight. So I'm picking Ricky Simon to win by submission in round number 2. But I want to point out on my prop template that at plus 140 for the under 2.5, we got positive 1.29% here, 11% here, and 9.67%. When all 3 of these are green, it's a trifecta bet. And the fight doesn't go to decision at plus 120, even better here at plus 3.89%, plus 12.44%, and 8.55. So both of these violence bets at plus money, plus 120, plus 140, underpriced according to my prop template tool here. But, I could see this one going to decision just as often as it finishes inside the distance. I'm just pointing out that both these guys get finished a lot in their losses, and that Simon flashes power on the feet, as does Bautista. And both of these guys have got a really tricky submission game on the mat. So I might get to a violence play this week, but I'm going to see where the other sites open these lines as well see if there was potentially even a better price to be had. But yeah, I'm going with Ricky Simon. I'm picking him to win this fight. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We got JP saying, is the value gone at Simon at minus 180? Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has left. At minus 180, you're looking at like a 64% implied probability. And Bautista's very efficient on the ground. He's not great at stopping takedowns, but he is great at getting back up. So if Ricky commits to the wrestling, but is unable to keep Bautista down, it may look bad optically to the judges, and the judges might favor the work that Bautista does at distance striking range if Ricky's unable to get that fight to the ground and keep it there for an extended period of time. So I'm not going to be laying the juice at minus 180, but big ups to everybody that got Ricky at minus 150, minus 155, minus 160. I think that's a lot better of a line, but at minus 180, I'll be staying away. Bautista training with Marcus McGhee in the same camp is an underrated advantage, in my opinion. Still picking Ricky. Yeah, I mean, Bautista's over at the MMA lab, and that is a phenomenal camp. Great training partners, great coaches there. So the lab always putting out great fighters. So yeah, that is a great advantage for him there, JP. Great point. All right, you guys, let's move on to the next fight. Jim Miller, the ageless one, at minus 136, going up against Gabriel Mowgli Benitez at plus 116. Fight doesn't go to decision for this fight, sitting at minus 300. So let's first start talking about the ageless Jim Miller here, who surprisingly has the experience advantage, right? He's got 21 more pro fights, 260 more minutes of pro cage time in 1.5 more years as a pro fighter. Since 2013 in the UFC, Jim has 15 more UFC fights than Benitez and 140 more minutes of octagon time. Miller is a cagey veteran of the sport. He doesn't get enough credit for how active he's stayed, even at the age of 40. This guy has had 28 fights in the last 11 years, most of them against some of the top names in the lightweight division, and he's still performing at a high level. Jim is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, and he's finished all 4 of those wins, and the only loss was a back-and-forth war that went to decision with Alexander Hernandez. Jim is capable and dangerous wherever the fight goes, and he still has that dog in him, so he's going to be a tough out for anyone in this division, even at the age of 40. Jim's bread and butter has always been his grappling game, as he's 19 wins and 4 losses to the submission in his pro career, but he's been flashing more aggression and power in the stand-up game, as 3 of his last 4 wins come by way of knockout. And Jim has definitely faced, beaten, and lost to the better brand of competition in his UFC career. The combined record of Jim's UFC opponents since the year 2013 is 277 wins and 206 losses, while for Benitez, it's 47 wins and 49 losses. And the guys Benitez have beaten have a combined record of 12 wins and 26 losses. So Jim Miller has more UFC wins since 2013 than the 7 dudes Benitez has beaten since 2014. Now, Gabriel Benitez is over 4 years younger than Jim. Gabriel should be the superior distance striker in this matchup. He's got a positive 1.11 distance striking differential, 68% distance striking defense. Gabriel stays busy, attempting almost 15 distance strike per minute, landing 5.86 of them, which is 1.29 more per minute than the divisional average. Gabriel also flashes power, landing 4 knockdowns in 13 UFC fights, with 3 of his 7 UFC wins coming by way of knockout. Benitez kicks like a mule, and everything he throws is with a ton of power and meant to knock you out. And Gabriel has always had a sneaky submission game. Even though he's a kickboxer who prefers to stand and bang, he actually has more submission wins, 10, than he does knockouts, which is 9 in his pro career. He's always done an excellent job of using his aggressive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game as his takedown defense. So even though his takedown defense looks bad on paper at 58%, he immediately starts attacking with submissions, especially his guillotine, when opponents try to take him down. Gabriel has only attempted 4 takedowns in his entire UFC career. So we won't look for him to wrestle offensively. And since Miller is a very low volume wrestler as well, I doubt we see much grappling here unless there are knockdowns or scrambles. The first piece of information I want to get out there when summarizing this fight is that Benitez is on a 1 year and 5 month layoff. Gabriel was scheduled to fight Jim Miller back in February of 2023. He pulled out of that fight for an undisclosed reason, and now we see him for the first time since, and he hasn't fought since the Charlie Ontiveros fight in August of 2022. So we don't really have anything more than a guess as to what's going on with Gabriel Benitez right now. That he's pushing 36 years of age. So 36 years of age, obviously that's 4 years younger than Jim Miller, but he hasn't fought in a year and a half. Jim Miller has been a lot more active than Gabriel has recently. Jim Miller is 40. He's got 54 pro fights and almost 500 minutes of career cage time. Jim has had 4 fights in the last 2 years, while Gabriel has had 2. So he's been more active recently, which is a good quality to have when 2 aging fighters are squaring off. I think if we see the old Gabriel Benitez, the busy and powerful kickboxer that throws with power and keeps the fight standing, then he should be live against Miller. But we need to see if Gabriel struggles to make weight at 155, because it was always a given that he was going to have a hard time making weight at 145. It's a southpaw versus southpaw matchup, which is always an interesting stylistic matchup to handicap. And there's the layoff and potential injury concerns that go along with this Benitez side. I'll go with the more active fighter in solid form who's won 4 out of his last 5 here and pick Jim Miller to win this fight by second round submission, but with very low confidence, because I seriously have no clue at all where Gabriel Mobley Benitez is at. The weigh-in will be a very good piece of information for us to handicap whether Gabriel is showing up for a check here or whether he's really trying to resurrect his career at the age of 36. He was never that great to begin with, but Jim Miller is somebody who is a better grappler than he is a striker, but he's not a willing wrestler. So if we see, a Gabriel Benitez that's well rested, that's healthy, that's hungry, and that's able to keep this fight standing, I think he'll probably look like a favorite in this spot. But those are all big ifs. We got to find out which Gabriel Benitez shows up here. And since I don't have any information on that, I'm picking Jim Miller, who has been busier, who has been hot, who has been in good form recently. And I'll pick him to win this one by second round submission. Let's see what you guys are up to in the chat right now, as we've got MMA Bill Counter in the room saying, "Oi, Happy New Year." What's up? And he's got Tony Kelly rocking out on that guitar, doing the stanky leg dance in the, what was that? That was the Giannis fight. Good to have MMA Bill Counter in here. We got Justin Villegas saying, "I'm betting the other guy barely makes weight and is half himself and go with Jim." Yeah, I hear you, dude. I think that's what a lot of people are counting on this week. And JP Taylor, do you have Jim's numbers versus Southpaws? I don't have the numbers versus Southpaws, but I know they're not very good. The problem with obtaining numbers like that for Jim Miller is that there's like 20-something fights, and I'm just not going to go through all of it. But Jim does not have a good record against Southpaws. That much I know. And Taylor Tea saying, "I hope Jim Miller wins, and we can see Tony versus Miller at UFC 300. That would be, I want to see, as long as you're not talking about Tony Ferguson versus Joni, because we should never see Tony Ferguson fight professionally ever again, ever. But we need to see Jim Miller get in there at UFC 300, because he's been talking about being the only guy to fight at 100, 200, and 300, and I'd love to see him on that card. Jim Miller's an absolute G. Weezy, your voice got deeper. No, it didn't, man. It's just I'm sick, dude. I'm sick, so I'm just pounding the water, trying to get healthy again, and hopefully you'll be back to hearing the usual dulcet tones of your Uncle Weezy next week after my punk ass immune system gets out of bed and fucking decides that 10/8 is bullshit cold. That does not have my permission to be inside my body right now. I deserve better effort than this from my immune system, is all I'm going to say. All right, you guys, we got 2 more fights to break down here. The next one is going to be Matheus Nicolau squaring off against Manel Kape. This is going to be a great fight. We've got Manel is a favorite here at minus 270. Nicolau, big underdog at plus 230. Fight doesn't go to decision here. Sitting at plus 120 for this fight. So we've got Nicolau is going to have the UFC experience advantage with 3 more fights and 30 more minutes of octagon time. Matheus is a talented striker. Like Manel, he's low volume and he prefers to counter. He's got a positive 0.53 distance striking differential with way above average 52% accuracy and almost 69% distance striking defense. Matheus is very patient at distance, and patience pays dividends, and due to how precise he is when he chooses to engage. The accuracy and defense are definitely testaments to his process, but also the power numbers are eye-popping. Matheus has landed 8 UFC knockdowns in 9 fights and is landing a knockdown on 2.5% of the distance strikes that he lands. Matheus only attempts 7.85 distance strikes per minute, which is almost 3 less than the divisional average. But because of that patience, he's accurate and able to not get hit by his opponent's offerings. Matheus has been dropped 3 times in the UFC, and all 3 of his pro losses come by way of knockout. So Matheus is well aware of the fact that he's chinny, and he fights in a very defensively responsible fashion that allows him to protect his chin while also being precise and powerful with his strikes. Matheus will have the grappling advantage in this matchup. Both guys are BJJ black belts, but it's Matheus' grappling metrics that are really impressive. Matheus has above average 45.45% accuracy, and he's got 93% takedown defense on 15 attempts against. If Matheus wants to keep fights standing, they stay standing. If he wants to mix in the grappling and win minutes and moments there, Matheus also has that ability. Around 78% of Nicolau's octagon time takes place at distance striking range, but the 22% that takes place on the mat or on the fence, Nicolau is winning 79% of those positions, and he's out-controlling his opponents 17.7% to 4.7%. Nicolau was 4 wins and 0 losses to the submission in his pro career, and if one guy does manage to win minutes in the grappling exchanges in this fight, it should be Nicolau. We saw Nicolau win the first round against Kape with his wrestling and top control in their first fight, but he was unable to get the fight back down to the ground in the second and the third. If Nicolau wants to stay safe in this fight, he's going to need to find ways to get this fight to the mat in at least 2 out of the 3 rounds. And Matheus' UFC wins definitely rate better than Kape's. The combined UFC records of the guys Matheus has beaten is 38 wins and 37 losses. And for Kape, the records of the guys that he's beaten, 8 wins and 14 losses. So Matheus is also fighting the more experienced guys and the guys with the better win-loss ratios at the UFC level. Manel Kape, though, is almost 1 year younger than Matheus, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here. Plus, he's the southpaw in the southpaw versus orthodox matchup. Manel has the overall experience advantage with 4 more fights and 35 more minutes of pro cage time and almost 2 less years as a pro fighter. So Kape has also been the more active fighter over their respective careers. And Manel, without a doubt, is the more explosive finisher as a professional. Manel has finished 16 of his 19 pro wins inside the distance. That's 84% finish rate. That's 5 submissions and 11 knockouts. While Nicolau only has a 53% career finish rate. Manel has finished 2 of his 4 UFC wins, both by knockout, while Nicolau has only finished 2 of his 7 UFC wins. So Kape is definitely the guy more likely to win moments in this contest. And Manel does his best work on the feet at distance striking range. He's got a positive 0.27 distance striking differential with almost 54% accuracy and 60% defense. Manel definitely has explosive power, landing a knockdown on 1.6% of the distance strikes that he lands. and finishing 11 of his 19 wins by way of knockout. Manel is very comfortable in the pocket. He has great boxing, good head movement. He throws in combination, and he's fast, precise, and powerful. Both Manel and Matheus both love to counter, so this might be a little low volume at first, but Manel will stay in that pocket and look to counter everything Matheus throws while moving his head to stay safe. I do like Manel to win the minutes and moments at distance this time around, and Manel has fought the UFC competition that has the overall strength to schedule advantage due to the ratio of wins to losses of his competition, but it's close. So the first fight between these two was pretty close, but I thought Nicolau was lucky to win that decision. I scored the first for Matheus and the second and the third for Kape, but that's water under the bridge now. This is a counter striker versus counter striker matchup. I think Kape is the better and faster and more powerful boxer on the feet. And Matheus isn't a high volume wrestler that I can count on to chain attempts together enough to make this enough of a grappling match for Nicolau to find avenues to win minutes that way. At distance, Manel has the volume, he has the accuracy, and the speed advantages, while Nicolau is actually landing knockdowns at a higher percentage than Kape is. The biggest factor to consider for me, though, in this matchup is durability. Nicolau has been knocked out in all 3 of his pro losses, and Kape has never been knocked out in 25 pro fights, and he's never even been dropped in the UFC. I don't see Nicolau winning enough minutes with his grappling or moments with his striking to come out the other end with a win, and I do think Manel will find the big shot here after he gets Matheus timing. I'm picking Manel Kape to win this fight by second round knockout. Manel Kape by KO in round number 2 over Matheus Nicolau. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. It's still kicking ass from last year. Is that goddamn cold? Or is that what you're talking about, Justin? I got rid of it for about a week and a half. But then after New Year's, I think it came back like on the 4th or the 5th. I woke up with it again, and it still won't go away. So, yeah, man, that cold is non-consensual. Is absolutely right, MMA Bill Counter. It's a non-consensual. It doesn't have my permission to be here. I did not give it consent. Justin Villegas saying, Kape better fighter, but his ring IQ lower to his opponent because he gets emotional into the fights. And yeah, and sometimes he'll get a little bit showboaty. He'll start doing the crossover dribble shit while he's throwing jabs. And yeah, Kape can be dumb. Kape can be dumb. And Nicolau might be able to find ways to exploit that immaturity and that overconfidence that Kape sometimes brings into the cage with them. And Kape just had a tough fight against a debuting Santos. I think Nicolau is live, and the line keeps rising. At that number, I see some value in Nicolau's money line. Yes, I totally get that. Yeah, because Kape did have, but you go back and you watch that fight. It's a completely different stylistic matchup because Dos Santos is a shoot box fighter, right? So he's walking forward. He's staying in Kape's face. And because of that type of offense that he was showing, Kape really thrives when he's able to counter. So this guy was bringing the fight to Kape, giving Kape the fight that he wanted, and Kape was landing big on him. If he lands that big on Nicolau, Nicolau is going down. But the difference between Nicolau and Dos Santos is the aggression. Dos Santos moves forward, stays in your face, forces action. Matheus does the opposite. He moves laterally around the outside of the cage. He frustrates you. He makes you kind of like run in, and he creates those counter opportunities almost by refusing to engage with you. So it's going to be up to Kape to walk down Matheus here. But the problem is that Matheus isn't powerful enough to knock out Kape, but Kape is powerful enough to knock out Nicolau. So I like Kape here because I think the optics at distance striking range are going to completely favor Kape because we're not going to see Nicolau willing to engage. We're going to see him moving laterally and moving away from Kape, which is going to look bad to the judges. And I don't think that when he plants his feet, he's going to be able to land with enough power to change the judge's mind about the poor optics that the running away is going to cause. And I was at the fight in Sydney. The whole arena was going for Santos. That was a great fight, dude. That was a great fight. That dude, Dos Santos, I'm looking forward to him being back because that was a very credible performance on short notice against a killer like Manel Kape. Yeah, dude, I say they bring back Winslow, Mazzagatti, and Yamasaki for UFC 300. Evidently, Cuban Assassin has been seeing the strongly worded letters that I have been writing to the UFC brass on this exact topic. Bring back Kim Winslow, bring back Mario Yamasaki, bring back Steve Mazzagatti, and most importantly, bring back Vyacheslav Kisiev. The time has come. Okay? Kape, one of my lower weight class fighters, but he needs to do something. I don't know what it is, but to turn on another switch to make him elite. He's like B+. He can move to elite with the champs and number one contenders. And I think that's what people are expecting from him, Justin. He's a special fighter. He's got a lot of skills. So I think the people are going to see that he's going to continue to improve. And I think they're looking for him to take that next step and finish a guy that he kind of fought to a close decision the first time. All right, you guys, that brings us to the main event of the evening. It is going to be Magomed Ankalaev at -550. Rematch against Johnny Walker plus 400. Fight doesn't go to decision. Thanks, Bet Online. -950. Let's get these stats up on the screen and first start talking about the advantages that Magomed Ankalaev has in this spot. Magomed and Johnny have similar career experience numbers, but Magomed has 75 more minutes of pro cage time and 65 more minutes of UFC octagon time. Magomed is a master of winning minutes. He's 8 wins, 0 losses, and 1 draw to the decision in his career. Magomed is low volume, and he prefers to counter, but he's also very precise, powerful, and defensively responsible. So finding ways to outpoint this guy at distance or on the mat is a very difficult thing to do. Magomed spends about 65% of his octagon time at distance striking range, and he definitely wins the minutes when he's there. He has a positive 0.52 distance striking differential with above average 45.5% accuracy and a 60.7% defense. The power numbers are there too. He's got a 1.86% knockdowns per distance strikes landed and 6 total knockdowns in 12 UFC fights. Magomed attempts 2.04 less distance strike attempts per minute than the divisional average, but his opponents attempt slightly less strikes per minute than Magomed does. He's a master of dragging his opponents into low volume, point fighting matches that favor Magomed's pace, precision, and defensive skill set. He's really hard to score against, and if he ever catches you getting sloppy or rushing your offense, he counters you with a power shot that can drop you or end the fight. Magomed has clean, crisp boxing. He stays behind a fast and accurate jab. He stays heavy on his lead leg, and he doesn't leave openings for his opponents to capitalize on. It's not the prettiest thing to watch, but he's so hard to win minutes against at range. And he's equally skilled at winning minutes in the grappling exchanges. Magomed is a low volume but high efficiency wrestler. He only gets 1.07 takedowns per 15 minutes on 3.43 attempts. That's both below average for the division. However, Magomed outcontrols his opponents 31.7% to 3.9%, winning 89% of the control time positions his fights have been in. It's almost frustrating how little he wrestles, because when he bothers to go to it, he dominates and takes no damage. Johnny Walker only wins 27% of the control time positions his fights are in, and his takedown defense is a terrible 50%. So the door will be open for Magomed to wrestle in this fight, but he probably won't even bother to. Now, Johnny Walker is the bigger fighter. He's 3 inches taller, and he's got a 7-inch reach advantage over Magomed. Johnny is a gifted moment winner. 19 of his 21 pro wins come inside the distance. That's a 90% finish rate with 3 submissions and 16 knockouts. He's finished 6 of his 7 UFC wins inside the distance as well, 1 by submission and 5 by knockout. Johnny is an explosive athlete with unusual size and unorthodox striking, and he has a knack for finding big shots that melt his opponents. On the feet at distance striking range, Johnny Walker is everything that Magomed Ankalaev is not. He's offensive-minded. He's exciting. He's explosive. He's defensively irresponsible. He's chinny, and he's good-looking. He's everything that Magomed isn't. Walker's defensive strike differential is better than Magomed's at plus 1.34, and he's actually a little more accurate at range as well. He's an absolute wild man, throwing unpredictable and innovative attacks to all targets with a variety of weapons. He does a good job of using his length at 6'6" with an 82-inch reach to his advantage by trying jumping and spinning attacks mixed with innovative and unusual kicking techniques. Johnny surprisingly is as low volume as Magomed at range, but that might be because 1/3 of his UFC octagon time took place in that awful main event against Thiago Santos, one of the shittiest main events in recent history. I think Magomed has the way better chance to win minutes at range here, but closing the distance against someone Walker's size is not easy unless Walker consistently goes first and leaves openings like he did in the first fight. And Johnny's UFC strength of schedule overall rates better than Magomed's. The combined record of the UFC opponents for Walker is 102 wins and 68 losses, while for Ankalaev, it's 90 wins and 78 losses. So 1.5 win-to-loss ratio for Walker's opponents and 1.15 for Ankalaev. Johnny's UFC wins also rate slightly better than Magomed's, according to my metric. So I've always been hard on Magomed. I complain he doesn't do enough. He never throws enough at distance. He doesn't wrestle enough. He's boring. He's ugly. Blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, Magomed Ankalaev is 18-1-1. The only loss on his record was a panic tap with 1 second left in a fight that he was winning against Paul Craig. Magomed's style works for him, and he was close to being champion because of that low-volume, counter-heavy style. Walker is a guy who's a lot more exciting and fan-friendly. He's fun to watch. He's charismatic. He finishes fights in spectacular fashion, and he throws innovative and unusual striking techniques. This is definitely a clash of styles that should be a fun fight to watch. Right now, Magomed is a minus 550 favorite, and that's obviously wide, but I get it. Walker's chinny. He's not nearly as efficient of a minute winner as Magomed, and the grappling advantage is all on the Ankalaev side. Johnny Walker winning this fight would be in the UFC's best interest, though. He's the much more marketable and fan-friendly fighter in this matchup, so you never know what'll happen. Don't kid yourself. Walker has paths here. He could use his massive height and reach to outwork Magomed at distance and go to his lead leg, much like Jan Blachowicz did, in order to reduce his explosive straight left counter that Magomed lands so effectively. He could use teep kicks up the middle to maintain distance and be the one landing the cleaner and more effective counters. The height and reach advantages Walker has should not be ignored here. It's not like Ankalaev is younger, more experienced, or has fought even the better guys. This is 2 top 10 light heavyweights going for 5 rounds, and both of these guys have power. The durability, though, is the biggest factor to consider. Ankalaev also has the ability to use his grappling game to win minutes, and Walker, with his 50% takedown defense, would have a very hard time stopping it. Magomed is the rightful favorite here, but with his money line at minus 550 and his KO prop being minus 300, thanks BetOnline, I don't really see a way to profit from that read. So other than maybe sprinkling like a Walker KO, I think I'll either stay away from betting this fight or maybe try the over 1.5 rounds at minus 140. If we take a quick look at the prop template, these guys have had 3 fights that were scheduled for 5 rounds, and the over 1.5 here at minus 140 is a trifecta bet, as all 3 of these guys' 5-round fights, 3 of 4 have finished over 1.5 rounds. So that's 75% of the total when we're only paying 58.33% on the line. And 68.5% of 5-round light heavyweight fights do go over 1.5 rounds. So it's a fairly cheap price. And with two guys who do kind of prefer to counter, I wouldn't be surprised in a 5-round fight to see this one go over 7.5 minutes. So I kind of like the over 1.5 here. I think the price is right. I think the data likes it. And I think stylistically, with two counter strikers, that you're likely to see these guys kind of try to find their rhythm and their timing before the big shots start to land. So over 1.5 at -140, something I'm going to look at. But I'm going to pick Magomed Ankalaev to win this fight by a 3rd round ground and pound knockout. A very handsome Magomed Ankalaev by 3rd round knockout is the pick. All right, you guys. Let's see what you are saying in the chat here. Let's see. Even if Kape wins, my boy Kai Kara smokes him next. I mean, I think Kape definitely wants to fight that dude. They were supposed to fight. Kai Kara got injured and had to pull out, and that really made Manel mad. So we might see him fighting him next. Is there no DQ, no contest prop for this one? We'll see, man. You never know, dude. You could try to find the point deduction. These guys are definitely, they're definitely people that can cause some fouls. That's for sure. Weezy, you're the Michael Jordan of MMA handicapping. A++ game and still sick as a dog. I still feel like I just watched MJ's flu game. Get well and much thanks. Dude, I remember MJ's flu game. And you know what the hilarious thing is about MJ's flu game, which we found out recently? He didn't have the flu. That dude was up all night partying and gambling and didn't go to bed, stayed up all night, and then went to the game and absolutely shaved ass and had to get carried off the court by Pippen and Kukoc. And I'll tell you something that backs up that story was when I was in college, I worked for a land surveyor here in Illinois. And one of the places that we would do work was at this beautiful subdivision out in Barrington, Illinois, which was called Windstone. And Windstone had nothing but $1 million houses on sprawling lots. And there is a beautiful golf course that runs through this subdivision called Windstone. And while we're in the backyard of one of these houses, we're looking at the tee box, which is about 250 yards away from us. And my boss goes, "Look at that dude on the tee box." And I go, "Which one?" He goes, "Look at the tall black dude on the tee box." Well, doesn't that look like Michael Jordan? And I'm like, "No, I mean, like, I guess he looks tall, but like, it's not Michael Jordan." I told my boss, I'm like, "They're playing the Knicks tonight in the playoffs. We're out there. It's like 1 p.m. These guys got a 7 o'clock game." Sure enough, these guys hit the ball up. Sure enough, it's fucking Michael Jordan walking right past us as we're working in the backyard of this house. It's Michael Jordan on game day playing 18 holes of golf at Windstone. And then that night, he went and shaved the ass of John Starks and the New York Knicks in a playoff game here in Chicago. So Michael Jordan, one of the best athletes to ever walk the face of this planet. And I got to enjoy watching him pick 7 championships up for this fine city back between the 90s and 2000s. Man, that was something else. JP Taylor saying, "Oh, and only bring back Mazzagatti if he's funny." Dude, I think people would pay to see Steve Mazzagatti fight Mario Yamasaki. That would be funny. And then Kim Winslow can ref. They deserve as much. Absolutely. I'm with you, man. Justin Villegas saying, "Bet online, I think, has KO round 1 at +150. Jesus Christ. Yeah, their props are terrible. Why not take a chance on him for first round? I'm not. I'm just not, dude. It's not nearly enough meat on that bone to take a chance on that. We got Ruthless Soda Pop saying, "I think Walker got this due to the low kicks. He had Ankalaev biting on those feints and it opens up body teeps, which Walker follows up with his right hand and potential head kicks." Look, man, it's tough to deal with this dude's length. I mean, you can't teach length, and Walker has it in spades. It could be interesting, man. I think Walker at this price is kind of live. Villegas saying, "Handsome looks like a background extra from the Lord of the Rings, the orc side. I think he ate 2 goats and let one." Yeah, dude, Ankalaev is Definitely an ugly man. Kukoc, great name drops, says fellow Chicago and M-Test. Appreciate you, man. And Taya saying only value was on Walker. I could even see Walker for a sub for a lottery bet. Hurts him and takes the back. Johnny can snatch up and neck. Yeah, for sure, man. There's no doubt about it. I mean, like, this guy is so big, so powerful, so long. You know, he could land something that just removes Ankalaev from his consciousness. I think it's hard whenever you start laying minus 550 on light heavyweights, where all it takes is one. And somebody like, Johnny Walker is so dynamic. But you guys, we're 2 hours and 25 minutes in. So let's power through it here. Uncle Weezy's dog pick of the week. The Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking pick of the week, you guys, this week is going to be the Taylor Lapilus plus 3.5 points handicap. Now, it's only available at minus 105 right now on Bet Online, but they've got Lapilus's money line at plus 250. So that's just, a line that makes no sense. When this opens up on on DraftKings, on FanDuel, on Bet Rivers, we should be able to get something in the neighborhood of plus 140, plus 150, and that will be a bet for me this week. I think Lapilus has got great takedown defense. He's fought the better brand of competition, and I think he's the guy more likely to win minutes and moments at distance striking range. The experience and strength of schedule advantages as well. I think he's going to keep this fight very close. So Lapilus at plus 3.5 points handicap is going to be your Uncle Weezy's Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking pick of the week, which then brings us to the last order of business, which is going to be Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Who do you guys think it's going to be this week? We've got a lot of big favorites on this card, and I'm going to give you a hint. It's not Gene Silva, and it's not Waldo Cortes Acosta, because both of those guys are just too wide of favorites for me to say I'm confident that they're going to win. You guys are confident that they're going to win. The bookies are confident that they're going to win. Everybody's confident that they're going to win. But who's going to shave ass? Who's going to go out there and win in a way that has everybody going, oh, shit, that was nasty. I can't wait to see this dude fight again. I can't believe he finished that opponent in that manner. And for me, it's somebody that I think is on a little bit different of a level right now. I think it's somebody that a lot of the sharps out there are thinking is going to wear gold around his waist and do it shortly. And I think that when we see Manel Kape shave the ass of Matheus Nicolau on Saturday, it's going to be the type of performance that leads us to believe that Manel might be up next for a title shot. And we know that the first fight between Pantoja and Kape, which was Kape's UFC debut, was a very, very close fight. And we know that Manel would love to have that fight back because that was a terrible performance by Manel. He didn't really even show up. He didn't even start fighting until the third round. So I think that they're teeing up Manel Kape right now, a guy who is fighting somebody who is much less durable than him, much less active than him, much less powerful than him. And Manel's ground game has been getting better and better and better since the first time that they fought. I think Manel's going to be the aggressor. I think he's going to spend most of this fight walking down Matheus Nicolau. And I think that he's going to eventually find that big shot. And those shots that were landing against Dos Santos that weren't dropping Dos Santos, I think that they are going to drop Nicolau. And I think Manel Kape's going to get his hand raised with a second round brutal knockout of Matheus Nicolau. And I think if he does it with enough panache and flair that he could be the guy that gets the next shot at the champion, a guy he's already fought to a very close decision in Alexandre Pantoja. You guys, 51 of yous still hanging out live in here. We went balls deep on all 12 of these fights. We gave you the notes for all of these fights. How many pages? 29 pages of show notes that we read off every one of these words to you guys today. Every decision, every statistical advantage and disadvantage, all the tape study notes. All these will be available for everybody that's on the Patreon. Look for them to be posted tonight. Look for the timestamps to be posted on this video tonight. Thank all of you for hanging out live here on the first full card breakdown of this, the 2024 UFC year, headlined by the first card, Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. Let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks, not just on this card, but on every card this year, you guys. Let's make these bookies cry. Let's make a bunch of money betting on the fights that we like to watch. Real quick here, I'm going to give you guys my tracked bets that I have thus far for this card. A 1-unit, 2-leg parlay on the under 2.5 rounds for Bolanos and the over 2.5 rounds for Basharat Lapilus. That's a 2-leg parlay for 1 unit coming out to plus 106. I've got Manel Kape, your Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week, to win by KO or TKO at plus 215 for a half unit on BetOnline Sportsbook. And I also have a small bet, a quarter of a unit at plus 700 for Farid Basharat to win by split or majority decision over Taylor Lapilus. And we're also going to be adding a full unit bet when I find it at plus money on a more reputable book for the Taylor Lapilus plus 3.5 points handicap. A couple of other dog shots I'm taking a look at. Felipe Bunes by submission, Felipe Bunes' money line, and potentially a very small shot on Nik Motta to win by knockout as well. But thank you guys for hanging out. I hope everybody enjoys watching the fights and makes money while they're watching them. May we all stack cash tickets like flapjacks on Saturday. Tomorrow, I got to feel better tomorrow because tomorrow at 7 o'clock Central Time, I'll be on with my guys, the Chronic Combat Conversations people on their YouTube channel. At 8 o'clock at 8 o'clock Central Time on Pub Sports Radio, I'll be doing the DFS show with DFS by the numbers, Gordo Gambles, and Monk Maddox. And at 10 o'clock, right back here on your Uncle Weezy's YouTube channel, Ask Weezy, I'll open up the database of stats, and we're going to talk about the state of gambling and lines in this year of our Lord 2024 and some of the changes that we might have to make going forward due to how some of these lines are being opened by the book that has the responsibility to open them in BetOnline. Thank you guys for hanging out. God bless each and every one of you guys, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take it easy.